Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to a new series with the same soul as the one before, but even better. Welcome to the X Button. I am one of your hosts, Paul, and with me is my co host.
Alejandro.
Hey, Alejandro, it is good to hear your voice
It's
again,
been a
buddy.
while. It's a good thing that I was able to escape the Chinese government, if you
That's
remember
right.
that. So,
Oh, man, I was
it's
ready
been
to
a
pour
minute,
one
right?
out for you. Yeah, it has
It's been
been.
quite a minute.
Whew, and it seems like that has only gotten crazier out there with the whole Chinese thing. But we are
Oh yeah,
going to not bother with that
no,
today because
not
we
at
got
all.
plenty of
That's in the
things to talk
past.
about. Yes, along with the whole rest of the decade, 2019 was garbage.
Yeah,
Let's move forward. 2020. I
new
have
decade.
yes. Oh, I'm so excited for all this.
Oh
So
yes.
first things first on the list. What, Alejandro, have you been up to in the span of time between our last StatX thing, ignoring for the brief moment your feud with the Chinese government and how they've been hunting you down?
All right. Other than trying to dodge those tiny-eyed people, the only thing I would say that it's been a minute as we've been thinking about how we're going to move forward with what's basically the second year of statics media. Personally, I finally started a job working at a call center, which has been quite fun
Oh shoot!
for me to like keep talking and talking with people in a disembodied voice. So that is fun.
Sounds
and
vaguely familiar.
Yep. And then, yeah, just over the break, I got to write our game of the year stuff, at least from my
A
perspective, from like, the top 11 games of the year, the honorable mentions, and the most disappointing games. I
yeah, you
kind of
put a
asked
lot
you,
of work into that.
yeah, I did it all in one night as I was laying in my bed, being like, oh,
Oh.
yeah, it's almost the end of the year. I kind of want to write this because it's been a minute, especially since I did the review also for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which
Mm-hmm.
happened around the same time. So, so yeah, other than that thing, then I was just chilling. I started a job in December, which was a little unorthodox for me when everyone was like, time to get some well earned rest. I was working up until New Year's Eve. So that was fun.
Oh my
But hey,
goodness.
a new year, still working, and everything that I'm doing there, hopefully I can reinvest with whatever we're doing here. So how about you, Paul?
I have been oh, let's see where to begin actually. So I'll keep it brief at least, cut out most of the details. I've been running around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Being engaged now, I
Yeah.
am trying to fit in holiday fun celebrations for actually three families really. um,
Dang.
trying to bounce between all that and make sure everybody feels loved and run around. And it's not just like around the corner or 20 minutes away. My fiance lives across a 24-mile lake.
Mm-hmm.
And
Dang.
it takes about an hour and about 15 minutes to get to her house. And we also had to travel to Mississippi from New Orleans and Baton Rouge to like what Ponchatoula or something. There's a place called Walker, Louisiana, and we were all over the place basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it was a lot.
Yeah,
It drained me
I can imagine.
immensely. But between that, I have been working on some little odd jobs. I did a little
Mhm.
announcing for a 5K and a half marathon. And crazy enough, I started a woodworking apprenticeship that has I've only gone maybe a couple of days so far, but I enjoy it a lot actually because I do a lot of art and drawing and illustration. So a lot of those skills kind of transfer over with the
Mhm.
specifically the patience and the attention to detail that you need.
Yes.
But it's been really calming, really
Mhm.
nice, and they do like kitchen cutting boards, like the really nice kind. So
Mhm.
I've been enjoying doing a lot of the carving and
So, in short, you've been all over the place.
I've been all over the
That
place,
sounds
and I
about
have
right.
yeah, a lot more things even in the pipe that I'm not even prepared to talk about yet, but we'll
Hey, I mean,
see
you're
as
getting
things
married at the
go.
end of this year, so you have a specific end game planned
There's the
for this
yeah,
for 2020 as we say hi to the new decade. So,
for real.
as you can see, all of our listeners, even though we have built this as a gaming podcast, we like talking about ourselves a little bit because we're people. We have
And we're
lives.
a little egotistical every once in a
Oh
while.
yes, but hopefully, that'll be to our benefit, right?
Yes.
So,
So I'd
so
say we
Paul,
can. Yeah.
what is the X button? Just for
That's
people that are interested that decided to say, oh, that was a really cool logo with 3 controllers. What is this
right.
thing? Yeah,
That
so
is I can first. I want first off. I want to make sure that I give Zach the props that he deserves for coming up with both the name and the logo that
it
we're
was
going with.
so freaking good that we're like,
Boy,
because when we were literally trying to brainstorm what we were going to call this show after the end of Statics Radio, he
mhm.
literally just sent us that, and we immediately felt like it was Cupid firing an arrow. It was so good. And I'm like, it makes me shocked that no one ever grabbed it. I think it was the reason that everyone thought it was so obvious that no one grabbed it. Well, guess
yeah,
what? It just
we
fell in our
got it.
laps.
So yes, as far as yeah, props to him for sure for coming up with it. Don't want to take any of the credit for that. But as far as what it is,
Mhm,
so near the end of Statics Radio, we were realizing that we were moving towards some news and more focus on gaming, as
mhm,
Alejandro and I are very passionate about a lot of those things with the entertainment sphere of influence and gaming specifically. But Statics Radio wasn't initially created for that. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure Statics Radio ran its course. We kind of finished what we needed to do there, and with the new year, we all discussed it and realized that the best option was to begin one that was specifically created for the things that Alejandro and I love. And of course, PJ and Zach are going to be making guest appearances here and there as much as they're available for.
mhm,
They've both been working on a lot of things that are going to actually be seen on
mhm.
Statics Media soon. So keep an eye
Yes.
out for that.
Yes, and the Toronto's thing is that from the four guys that make the entire group of Statics Media, so you, me, Zach, and PJ, you and I
Yes.
are the ones that are more in tune towards what gaming was, and we've always wanted to have this kind of show where we just can meet up once a week and just talk about what we've been playing or the interesting things happening in the world of gaming. And while PJ does love games and Zach enjoys them here and there. Their passions lay elsewhere. Especially with
Yes.
PJ likes to do things that are a little more off the cuff, more creative,
Yeah.
and Zach is definitely our artist, and he
Oh,
really does
yes.
some really cool art that will be displayed sometime soon because he's definitely had a lot of time to do that. But Paul and I, whenever we did the first episode, just the two of us of Statics Radio, we just realized that there was something there. They were like, "Huh, it would be cool if we could be the two of us." Whenever, especially because that was a time where everyone was kind of busy trying to
Right.
get in and out, and then we decided, yep, let's take what we saw there and make it our own. And and this doesn't exclude our other members or any other guests coming in. We definitely want to see how we can take this show on the road this way.
Yes. Definitely, and so we're fully prepared for that. Now, I'd say we kind of covered exactly what
Hmm.
excuse me, I almost said Statics Radio again. The X
Hmm.
button is.
Hmm.
Alejandro, my next question, slightly related to what we've been up to, but also what is going to be our next segment with the gaming itself,
Hmm.
is what have you been playing, seeing, or hearing lately that you want
Oh,
to mention?
all right. So, what have I been playing?
Mm-hmm.
Currently, right now, I'm playing Concrete Genie. So,
Ooh.
one of the games that was conspicuously missing from any of my
Mhm.
3 lists that I posted in December, Concrete
Yes.
Genie was a PS4 exclusive starring our own Sack. Like all jokes aside, like it's just the main character looks just like him, and ironically, he's an artist. So that's the thing
Right.
that immediately started popping to my mind when I was playing that. Because this last couple days have just been going through my backlog. Like last weekend, I
Hmm.
finally beat Borderlands 3 and its first DLC, the Moxie Handsome something, whatever that thing was called. I don't even remember.
Handsome Vault, I think. I
Yeah,
haven't even actually been able to play the DLC
yes.
yet.
And and I also finished the Division 2 or quote unquote finished it.
Right.
And yeah, so like Borderlands 3, yeah, I'll talk about it later because we're gonna do some talks about the Game of the Year stuff. But
Yes.
back in the day when we were talking about Borderlands, I had a more negative reaction towards that game initially, if you remember. But I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
don't know
say,
if we covered it on the podcast
yeah,
itself, but as
yeah, I
far as
think I
reviews
briefly
go,
met. Yeah, I think I briefly met because PJ did the review for us. So I
yes.
didn't touch it because I was playing other stuff.
Okay,
So
never
I
mind.
was glad to have finished that and also the Division 2, which I had put off for a long time. But Concrete Genie, really fun platformer slash painting game that it's a really quirky and cute, and it's kind of the kind of game that I needed right now because
Hmm.
it's unique in the landscape. So yeah, that's what I've been playing. As for
Awesome.
seeing, obviously I mentioned that I saw the Rise of Skywalker and
Yeah.
did the review for us.
Hmm.
I The more I've gotten away from that movie, the more I've liked it from how I
Okay.
originally reviewed it. You can check the review on the site if you want.
Yes. And
Spoilers, I thought it was fine at first, but
okay.
then I saw it three more times. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
you know
gosh.
what? actually really liked it.
Huh.
Now that I can remove my critical eyes off of it. And then another thing that I saw over the break was the first three episodes of the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover for the
Oh, that's true.
Arrowverse,
That did
which,
come out, didn't it?
yeah, which I'll briefly say it was exactly what I've been wanting, and I'm waiting for the last two episodes that come out next week.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then heard I listened to my go-to gaming podcasts, the Kind of Funny Games Daily Show, the Sacred
Hmm.
Symbols, PlayStation Podcast, the Giant Bombcast. I like those are always my. Oh, I just want to grind out some stuff in Destiny 2 sometimes. Let's put some podcasts. So that's what I've been hearing. How about you, Paul?
Um, I will definitely answer that real quick for your reviews. Tell all of our listeners where they can find that.
You can find our reviews at staticsmedia.com. We
Yes.
wish we had even more reviews we could do, but I think we've tried to cover as many of the bigger things as we could.
Hmm.
But obviously, we're a very small venture, and games are too long. They're too dang long for us to cover them timely. And then by the time I think we finish them, so another big thing came up, and traffic has already gone away. But hey, that's what the lists are for, right?
Now, I want to make sure that I mention real quick to all of our listeners, if we have any game developers out there, please keep making your games extremely long. I love it. Just for the sake of
Uh,
reviewing,
just for the sake
I
of
would
reviewing,
say,
nope. For the
yeah,
sake of reviewing, you really don't. You start realizing how long games are these days
true.
when you're trying to crank them out for the review. And the thing is that when you're trying to rush through games for review, it just diminishes your actual opinion of how you would actually react to a game.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, but and I don't think that trend is gonna reverse anytime soon because games are getting longer. It seems like,
Praise the Lord.
but throwing the ball to you, Paul. What have you been playing?
Yes, indeed. I have been trying to also, if not really catch up on a backlog more so, I've
Mm-hmm.
been definitely trying to keep up with some things that slipped onto the radar because I've been having to streamline
Mm-hmm.
what I've played just to focus more on what's more popular, what are my
Mm-hmm.
friends playing with. That's a big one, really, just
Yeah.
because after a while, it's a lot more fun to play something with your friends. Even if it's not
Yes.
exactly what you want, it's
Mm-hmm.
still way more fun.
Exactly.
Um, so a few of my mainstays playing some Rainbow Six Siege with my
Mm-hmm.
friends. We've actually started playing The Forest together, which is
Mm-hmm.
the survival
The
horror
survival
game.
horror game, right? Of
Oh
like
my
the weird
goodness.
zombie-like things where you're starting and
Yes.
building stuff. So I've been
Yes.
wanting to get into that one because I've seen it in sale a couple times, but I think it depends on the friend group, and that's
I
where I come up
agree.
short sometimes. So that's a good thing that you got a friend group that you can actually play all of that thing, those kind of things.
Oh yes, definitely. So yeah, the forest has been a crazy experience with all of us. We've been goofing off, making nicknames for each of the people. I've actually streamed a couple of those things, which reminds me, I need to actually go save that on Twitch before it deletes my
Go for
videos.
it. Yeah, keep
But
keep it on the
anyway,
VOD.
yeah. So yeah, we've been playing a lot of that together, and that's been a lot of fun. Very different experience when you're on your own.
Mhm.
When you're together, it's more like just a building sim with some enemies that rush you, and it kind of gets a little spooky. But if you're on your own, you are always on edge. I remember I felt like my heart rate skyrocketing at times, especially at night when I'm trying to make it home.
Mhm.
But as far as that goes, yeah, playing that. I've been playing the Outer Worlds a lot,
Mhm.
trying to burn my way through
How
that.
many hours are you into that game?
Oof. Honestly, not even nearly enough
Okay.
because I think I'm only on not quite Groundbreaker, the
Mhm.
big ship. It's a place called Monarch right now,
Mhm.
and it's only like the third, I think, place you can visit in the whole game. So I know I have a lot to
Mhm.
sink into it
Yeah.
before I'm done.
Yeah, I'll say something briefly about the Outer Worlds. It didn't
Yeah.
make any of the and it didn't make any placement on any of the three lists because I
Hmm.
didn't finish that game. because I
Ah,
kind of fell off of it after 15 hours, but I'm planning to going back to it after I finish Concrete Genie. So I may have more thoughts about that one in the coming days, and it will work, especially since you're still playing. So,
right. I will say, I agree on what you were saying with after a certain amount of time, it did start to feel a bit,
hmm
I want to curb what I'm going to say. It felt a little repetitive just
hmm
because of the process of go here, talk to the person, go
yeah,
to this other place, talk to
it's
the
very
person.
fetchy, right? It's very like fetch questy,
Yeah.
and with the
Um,
world being a little small, it starts getting dull after a little bit.
but I will say I really enjoyed. I'd almost wanted more enemies out there
hmm
because I was living for the combat whenever it
hmm
would happen. I loved wiping some people out with
hmm
my giant hand cannon.
I will say this, at least to give them credit. They did that on was basically a shoestring budget. Like the Obsidian Entertainment, who made this
Hmm.
game, literally did that with like very little funding from the private division. And their idea was to try to make like a Fallout-like game, but
Hmm.
smaller and not as sprawling as the later Fallouts were. And I would say that they actually succeeded, especially since what currently is in the news about Fallout is Fallout 76, and we know
We
how
don't need
that
to.
game
We
went.
don't say that word here.
Yep. So I would still say that even though I didn't finish it, I kind of fell off of it. Like I still have to give them props because they showed that it's possible to make that kind of game without that huge budget. So
And
and
today as well, making that kind of a game today
mm-hmm,
because of how like the whole reason Fallout moved away or Bethesda moved away from that for Fallout 4
mm-hmm,
and streamlining it to just 4 options each, which
mm-hmm,
kind of ended up moving the same way anyway,
mm-hmm.
was because they were like, oh, it's too complex, there's too much going on, and
But that's what
Obsidian was
people
like,
love.
forget that noise.
Yeah, but that's what people love about Fallout. Why people still play Skyrim to this day, and
Yeah.
even Fallout 3. The expansiveness of like the minutia of the different permutations of decisions that you can make in conversations and all that. That's in Outer Worlds at the very least. So
Hmm.
for people that want that kind of game, they got that kind of game with what Obsidian did, and props to them.
Oh yes.
So
Um, so those are the things I've been playing for right now, outside of a couple little dabbles here and there, among Pokemon, of course. But what I've also seen was Rise of Skywalker.
hmm
Personally, I kind of had the opposite
hmm
reaction where, like, at first I liked it more, and then the second time I saw it, I've only seen it twice.
you
I
started
liked
seeing
it
more the
significantly
problems.
less.
Yeah.
I was sitting there like the more it really is like one of those childlike fantasy stories where like as in a literal child telling you a story where the more you think about it the more it falls apart.
Yeah. No, it literally is that. It literally
Yeah.
is as soon as you start thinking about a thing, that thing falls off at the seams. The more I
Right.
saw it and really let my brain just shut off about it, just kind of enjoy the spectacle and the pace of that thing.
Yes.
Like I just realized it's just the one that I have the most fun out of the three movies that they released. Also, by the way, for people that are wondering, wait, this is a gaming show. Why are they talking about movies? So, just real brief, something that we're planning to do with the podcast is that near the end of every episode, we're gonna have something called X Reel, because a reel
Yes.
is like with a thing that takes pictures of movies and TVs, and we wanna have some wiggle room to kind of touch upon things outside gaming near the end usually, so we can at least have some thoughts on any big movie or TV thing that happens around. So that's why we're talking about movies right now. But don't worry, this is going to be strictly a gaming show, okay? So keep going. So Paul.
Yeah, no, you're good. So yes, the more I thought about it, so like
Mhm.
just I think something kind of kicked me out of my excuse me, I'm struggling. Suspension of disbelief
Mhm.
immediately was kicked out as soon as the title scroll was going on, where it just says "the dead
They did
speak,"
speak.
and it was like Palpatine's back.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
that's the
know.
thing. And
Do you want to know they didn't plan this trilogy out? Just look at that
oh,
scroll.
I just feel
Yeah.
I just kind of feel a sense of disappointment. It's
Mhm.
really popped a lot of the bubble for how much I have taken for granted
Mhm.
other pieces of fiction that have even a coherent narrative, even
Mhm.
if it's not perfect, even if it's got a lot of flaws. I can really appreciate so much more just a single like this is one person's vision from start
Hmm.
to finish. This is what they did. This is their
Yes.
passion project. It's made me appreciate all of that so much more because I realize how important that is when it doesn't exist.
Yes, I like the prequel trilogy that everyone hated at first, and suddenly people are like, you know what? It's not that bad. And I'm like, thank you for seeing what I've always seen since I was little. I've never understood the vitriolic hate those movies always got.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of glad the sequel trilogy is not kind of getting that, even though people are like, you don't have to watch the things with rose tinted glasses. I will say this: Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, better than all those three movies that Disney released.
Mm.
Mic drop. I'll still say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, especially I think with Star Wars, I think I had a little bit more rose tinted glasses towards it because we actually did get a lot of good Star Wars content in 2019.
Very
As
true.
I
And
was,
it's
we will,
hard to hold
yeah,
up to that compared to
exactly.
something like The Mandalorian and Jedi
Hmm.
Fallen Order.
Exactly, and we will talk more about the game later on today. But yeah, so those are the things that you've been playing and seeing, Paul.
Yes, and as far as hearing, I'll
Hmm.
just only touch on this for maybe a couple sentences. I
Hmm.
have been listening to musical soundtracks,
Oh,
or
nice. Which one?
soundtracks of musicals. Let me correct myself.
Yes.
Specifically, I had a friend and roommate that got me on Hamilton.
Ooh,
And
hey, no, I'm not
what the
no judgment
heck?
here. That thing is very catchy, right?
Holy smokes. Not just that, but like the way they weave a story into all of that. It's just all of the 40 some odd songs that they play on there.
Mm.
And I was like ready to start crying at the end of listening to it. But even like I didn't just stop there after I read that or listened to it all and watched some animatics that were on YouTube and stuff. I listened to Dear Evan Hansen,
Mm-hmm.
and just today I listened to Be More Chill, which are both some awesome Broadway stuff. I think both, if not at least one of them, has finished its run on Broadway. But um, that was just trying to branch out, listening
Mm-hmm.
to some new things, trying to catch up because I just love when people can really belt out some good notes. So
Yes.
that's what I've been listening to as
Yeah.
far as that goes.
Especially with all the going around that you've been doing, I guess you also need some music to kind of keep you grounded for
Very true.
all those things. So, all right. So, oh, what's that? It's
That
time
is
for
our
some
news
news
second.
action. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, what's funny about starting a show in the what's pretty much the first official week of January is that
Hmm.
not much is happening.
They
People are
ain't
still
nothing.
kind of, yeah, it still feels like the throat clearing section of the year as things are about to start happening. But man, 2020 is going to be a big year for gaming, isn't it, right,
You
Paul?
are not kidding.
Yeah. So like, and it seems that one company decided to jump ahead and just show what they have in store for next year, and that was Microsoft. In the time that we had the break between their previous show and now this new one, during the Game Awards, they decided, okay, let's randomly drop a trailer where we're going to show the design of our new Xbox. Not a new Xbox One, the new Xbox. What's it
Yeah.
called, Paul?
The fridge.
Yep.
Series
Series
X.
X. So I'll be honest, I hated the name at first. After hearing them explain why it's called like that, and they're actually emphasizing that they want the thing to be called Xbox, the Series X thing starts making a lot more sense. You know what?
Yeah.
Because now they have set themselves up for infinite models. It's
Hmm.
just no more generations. That's the box. And it's
Yep.
going to iterate from there and from now on. And with their whole backwards compatibility initiative, the Game Pass thing and all that, I'm like, we're primarily PlayStation guys, right? Like
Hmm.
I can say that out loud there, and we play the Switch sometimes.
Yep.
I feel Xbox is really positioning themselves really well with like what they want to do and making a machine that actually, yes, you said it looks like a fridge, but I think they're
Hmm.
really laying the groundwork there. It's like they want their thing, and my dog is
Oh,
barking.
absolutely. They're thinking long term for sure,
Yes,
and I can absolutely respect them for that.
yes, and I feel by making a machine that big, it tells you that thing they want that thing to be powerful,
Hmm.
real powerful. So last generation they got undercut by power, by Sony, and also by a price tag. So Sony
Also
had a
true.
that had like the more powerful console, and it was $100 cheaper, which was like a knife twist no one ever saw. I think this time
Which
around Microsoft. Wait, are you hearing those barkings?
I did hear that, yeah,
Yeah,
but it's
yes.
okay.
Yeah, so
Um,
my dogs, just a little FYI for our listeners. I live in a house that it's on the second floor, and my garage is on the first floor. My dogs live in the second floor, and every time a car comes in and out, my dogs like to do like a symphonic orchestra,
the
as you can probably see. Hopefully, you can pick up on that. They're still barking. They're still barking,
Philarbarkic Orchestra.
and they're feeling barking. And I think that should be symbolic of how this show is gonna go. Guys, if you thought this is gonna be a professional podcast, well, I just want to pop your bottle. It's just having fun. So random stuff is gonna happen. Like I've been looking at this wasp that's like been flying above my head and trying to keep
Oh
myself.
my gosh.
Yeah, but just so you know, I like keeping it fun. So
Talk
I was
about
saying,
being under pressure.
yes. So like I was mentioning, yeah, Microsoft, like I feel this time around they're gonna have the more powerful console, because they did have the most powerful console after they released the Xbox One X whenever the mid-gen upgrades happened. So I feel they want to be more aggressive to that. But my big question is, will it matter? Because price matters, and which is what Sony did last time. And speaking of Sony, how did they counteract the reveal of the Xbox Series X, Paul?
They photoshopped a piece of the P and then flipped it upside down, and then they drew a line to make it a 5.
Yep. So Sony's big response of Microsoft suddenly dropping the box shape of the console. Let's show you a logo. This happened on Monday on CES. And what does that logo say? It's the 5. That
Yep.
looks exactly the same as the PS4 and PS3 and PS2 and original PlayStation thing.
I
And
will say
people
the
lost their minds for some
PS2.
reason.
Right. I will say the PS2 looked awesome because
Yes.
it had that blue like
Hmm.
gradient look.
Yeah, and then they switched to
Um,
the all white gradient for
yeah.
PS3, PS4. Well, to be fair, on PS3 when they originally launched, it had the Spider-Man font. Do you remember that?
Oh
There
yeah,
was like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
like the like tilted to the side font
Mm-hmm.
from like Spider when about Spider-Man 3 was about to come out, and they were like, "Oh, we're Sony. We produce those movies. Let's make some cross promotion that didn't end
Dang, I
up
didn't even
mattering."
think about yeah, like they owned Spider-Man, so they
Hmm.
could just like, huh? Okay, that
Exactly.
just kind of made me connect some things.
So yeah, so I would say going back to Sony, weird move by Sony to just being like, here's the logo. See you later. So I'm like, okay. Hopefully
Mm.
this is not hubris. And
You
you
know,
being
I
like,
think that might just be like a panicked reaction to
mm-hmm,
Microsoft hitting another home run with that. Like, just
mm-hmm,
clearly, I mean, I wouldn't quite say it's a home run, but it is a good line drive of like they're making progress, they're showing things, and
mm-hmm.
PlayStation's clearly not keeping up with that.
Yes,
And so I think they just wanted to put something out there, even if it wasn't quite like quote unquote ready. I mean, that's
exactly.
clearly going to be their finalized
Yes.
font, but
I will
yeah.
say Sony's been real weird and real out of the box with how they've been revealing stuff about the PS5, because originally they announced that they were working on their next generation console back in April of last year through a
Hmm.
Wired article, completely out of the blue. They were like,
Yeah.
the next generation console is gonna have a solid state drive. There's gonna be no load times, and it supports output for 8K. And I'm like, I don't even have a 4K TV, and this thing is supposed to
Right.
output at 8K already. Okay, nice future proofing, I guess. So that's how they reveal it. And I would say that them announcing the no loading times and all that, they actually did undercut Microsoft then, because then at E3 this
True.
year, Microsoft made a big deal about it. Now we're actually gonna have some details about Project Scarlet, which that's how it was
Hmm.
called. And then Project Scarlet was like, oh, it's gonna also output at 4K, and hopefully will hit 120 frames a second, and it's gonna have no loadings. I'm like, that's what Sony said in an article. So
Hmm.
the machines are gonna be pretty much the same, aren't they? And then last October, Sony was like, "Yep, our next console is called the PlayStation 5, coming out fall 2020." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I remember when I told you that, you're like, "Good, I'm gonna be in my honeymoon when the next console
Yep.
launches." So so yeah, so Sony's been really weird and like very low key. It's like they're not making also it's like they're not making a big deal about it. I think that's
Hmm.
kind of smart, because they've been so successful with PS4
Mm.
that they don't want to completely overpromise with the next one in the fear that it's not going to hit. But it's still weird, especially when Microsoft now, you can feel their hunger. you can
Hmm.
feel their hate. It's flowing through it. You can feel
I
like,
will agree with that.
yeah.
Microsoft lost their chance a lot last time, and they have
Mhm.
clearly, like whoever's pulling the strings back there said we're not going to make that mistake again. So they keep punching every shot
And
they
you know
get.
what?
Mm.
Let them have it,
Oh
because a
yeah.
more competitive Microsoft means that whatever PlayStation does, they're gonna strive to be better. Like they're actually gonna do it. Whenever I feel like this last generation was too lopsided. I wish Microsoft had put more of a fight, even though they lost that fight before it even began with the Xbox One reveal. I feel this
Hmm.
will be better for this generation, because then it means that these two titans are gonna be really fighting it up, especially when
Hmm.
the third pillar, Google Stadia, is just kind of sitting there in the corner. Oh yeah, remember the Stadia release in the middle of our break, right?
Oh wow,
And
that happened.
yeah, that happened. Moving on. So yeah, that's as big as, so for the Xbox and PlayStation news, that's as big as it gets. Oh, and the
Yeah.
Xbox did show some. It showed the back of the box at CES. If you were wondering if that big fridge was going to use the power brick again, fear not. It has a regular cable that is the same one that you can plug in your PS4 on. So
Oh neat. I call that the
it's,
little bunker cable.
yes. So and to me that's like neat, because I tell you, whenever someone let me borrow the Xbox One earlier, well, late last year, so I could play Gears 5 and a bunch of other stuff, he had the
Hmm.
fat one, and that power brick, I tell you, man, what an annoyance trying to move that thing from TV to TV and trying to find it for it to look good. Good on
Very
Microsoft
true.
for getting rid of it. All right.
Yeah.
So moving on from that,
Hmm.
there was a Pokemon thing today. Did you see
There
anything
was.
about?
So I didn't. You know what? The stuff that we were talking about, I'm not actually sure if that was part of the reveal
Mm-hmm.
today or not, but I think it was. Basically, they are adding an expansion, which is $30.
Mm-hmm.
They are adding, as I understand it, 200 more Pokemon that are already like in existence, like previous gens, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's like other areas to visit or anything. I didn't get to see it myself, but a lot of people are using this to confirm their theories that Pokemon Sword and Shield were vastly rushed,
Mm-hmm.
and that there should have been more Pokemon in it,
Yeah.
and they're now just putting it back in the game as it's done and asking you to pay $30 for it.
Yeah. So so if I'm not mistaken, this was what the whole Dexit controversy was, right?
That is
That it,
part of it. It's
yeah.
still
So.
going to not allow you, because like one of the big things about the Pokemon games is after you beat the story, it would allow you to get what's called the National Pokedex.
Mm-hmm.
That let you take Pokemon from games you have played in the past, transfer it to this one, and then you could get all sorts of new Pokemon that you couldn't before. Like you would go to the same place and there's new Pokemon that you could
Mm-hmm.
find, and you could just get all 800 whatever Pokemon there were. This was the first one that completely cut all of that out, and now there's only a proverbial handful.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they're adding a few more, you're still not able to do a lot of the things that were there in the first
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, so this Pokemon Sword and Shield, I know PJ has been streaming it a lot, and he's been having a fun time with it. Zach has been, who is a big Pokemon fan, has been critical of it from the very beginning and never
Hmm.
did it really dug it in. To me personally, never looked that interesting, if I'm perfectly honest. And the whole Dexit thing was like something like, okay, let the Pokemon fans rage about not having all the Pokemons from all the ones in this new one. But yeah, just I would do agree that the game did look rushed. It really
Mm-hmm.
did. Like the T posing of the eagles flying on the grass that didn't move, that didn't look like it was moving, and all that.
Oh, that's
Um,
actually supposed to be that.
yeah. So, so it's just yeah. It just there's something that was the first quote unquote console Pokemon game in like forever, since like Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon DX. That was kind of like
Mhm.
you moving around and having being a trainer and all that. And for it to kind of come out like that, I'm like, yes, I know a lot of Pokemon fans like eating up a lot of what they get served, but there's just something about that one that I'm like, even this is kind of pushing it. It feels like being doing the bare minimum, and now they're gonna fill it up with DLC that you have to pay when that happened before and you didn't have to pay a cent, as far as I know. So,
Yes.
so yeah, that to me is just a bunch of BS. But hey, Pokemon fans were raging about Dexit and all that, and then this Pokemon sold for by the bajillions. So what do they care? If they keep buying, they're not gonna change. So
Very true.
uh,
I will say, it is a fun game for
mhm,
sure, and my fiance loves Pokemon even more than me,
mhm.
and she has
So
been
you've been
staying
playing
up.
it? So you actually played
Yes,
it? Yeah. Okay.
I have played it, not nearly as much as my fiance, who has played it constantly, just about every day, up until about 2 or 3 in the morning. I don't know
Mhm.
how she hasn't beat it yet, but she is just loving the heck out of every moment.
Hey, Paul. Sometimes people like savoring games. They like just
Right?
taking their
Like, what is
time,
a
right?
concept of
Yeah, what is that
that?
concept, right?
What do you mean you get to just run around and have fun?
Oh yeah, what a
Uh,
foreign thing. I don't know why people play like that, right?
yeah, I've actually had to learn a lot how to
Hmm.
recapture
All
that
right,
for
so
sure. So anyway,
that's
our next
Pokemon.
segment
Yeah.
is the new Alejandro. You might have to take the lead on this one because I don't know as much about it. The new Batman game was briefly teased. What is that?
So let's flash back to September 26, 2019. Warner Brothers Games Montreal. Last time they tweeted anything was like mid 2015, and then their entire account went quiet,
Hmm.
like deadly quiet. I almost figured out did they get banned or something because they haven't tweeted anything for 4 years. Suddenly, on during for the celebration of Batman Day on September, out of the blue, they were like they showed a random logo that was like "Capture the Night" and some weird
Hmm.
logos that look like things that you can kind of relate to Batman. And then they went quiet again. They literally did that
Oh,
before a PlayStation, the State of Play, the Nintendo Direct thing, and everyone was like,
I remember that.
Interesting that you were teasing this a day before a PlayStation State of Play, where you usually announce games. That was the State of Play that revealed The Last of Us release date. That then got pushed 3 weeks later, which was hilarious. So remember when that game was coming out in February? Now it's coming in May. That was funny.
Yeah, really.
So they were like, "Oh man, that was quite an embarrassment." But yeah. So then they went deadly quiet. Then people were like, "Okay, New York Comic Con is coming soon. That's like superhero. That's for superhero stuff. That's where random games get announced." I remember the Amazing Spider-Man game was originally revealed there.
Oh shoot,
Yeah,
yeah.
completely out of the blue. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're making the Amazing Spider-Man game that's coinciding with the Andrew Garfield movie. It's
Hmm.
coming out in 6 months." So everyone was like, okay, it's gonna be there. Didn't happen. Then they were like, okay, thesis. The next thing will be Game Awards. Batman has a history with the Game Awards. Batman Arkham City was revealed at the Game Awards back in 2009. I remember it well. I was
Hmm.
there watching. I remember watching my TV that commercial. I was like, I was like, Batman Arkham Asylum came out 3 months ago, and you're already teasing a new one. That's quick. So
Jeez.
Game Awards came and went. I literally spent the whole night hoping I was going to see something because, boy, oh boy, I want more Batman in my life. It didn't. It went and came and went, and I'm like, why the f are you teasing that thing and then going quiet again? So today they reveal another logo, and then they reveal another logo. Then they reveal half a logo. Those logos were like half a logo
Hmm.
that then completely emerged into a full logo that again said "Capture the Night." And I'm like, why are you doing this? Why don't you just say what you're working on? This doesn't work. You already did your logo thing reveal. That should have been followed up with a reveal like no later than the next week. That's like almost okay, September, October, November, December, 4 months. So what the heck?
Jeez.
So and my thing is that so do you play the Batman games?
Oh, I did.
Yeah,
I
so
loved them.
so Arkham Knight came out 5 years ago almost. That was 2015.
Arkham Knight 5. Are you
Yes, 2015.
serious?
Yeah, almost it's gonna be 5 years this year. So
Holy
it's
moly.
been a while. So but the thing is that Batman Arkham Knight was made by Rocksteady, which has been
Right.
also real quiet ever since they did that Batman Arkham VR thing for PSVR, which actually was fine. It was actually
I
really
got to
cool.
play that too, actually.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was
fun.
really fun. It was like the best thing you could play at PSVR that wasn't what was it? Was it Res Infinite, which was a really really cool thing that was on PSVR when it launched.
Mm.
But yeah, so WB Montreal they worked on Batman Arkham Origins, which is kind of like the the unwanted stepchild of the Batman Arkham games because it wasn't made by Rocksteady. But I would
Hmm.
say that that game, for all the flack that it gets, it probably had the coolest story of the games. Like it
Think
was
so?
it was a really cool story, and it definitely had the best boss fights. Like if there was one thing that Rocksteady didn't nail was the boss fight, other than the Mr. Freeze fight on Arkham City.
I
All
did
the
love
other,
that.
yeah. So I would say like the boss fights on Arkham Origins were definitely cooler. They felt more like what you would expect a boss fight, especially the Deathstroke fight, which
True.
says so. Yeah, obviously the game was buggier than the Rocksteady game, so that's why like it gets a lot of flack. But that was WB Montreal's last game, and they kind of rushed that game out because WB was like, "Oh, Rocksteady's not ready for their next game because it's gonna be next gen." WB Montreal, are you available? Let's put up a Batman game so we can say that we put up a Batman game. So that was 2013. It's 2020. So they've been working on this one for a while. So WB Montreal,
That does make me
to
very curious.
quote Christian Bale's Batman on The Dark Knight Rises.
Where's the
Where
trigger?
is it? Where is it? Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Batman teas. But I'm like, just say something. Please say something. I want my Batman
Yeah.
fix. I want my DC superhero game fix. They were the ones making it. Then Spider-Man comes out, and then DC's like tail under their legs, just completely going to silence. Like
Mm.
no games announced, like or anything like that. It's been weird. So
Yeah, that is a good point. It's, I mean, I'm still one of those firm advocates that you can absolutely make a good Superman game.
yeah,
People are
same.
just too afraid to.
Exactly.
And I had plenty of ideas for somebody that if like they somehow were like, hey, we can't come up with an idea for Superman stuff, I would be busting down their door saying, listen, boys, this is
Mhm.
how you do this XYZ. There you
Exactly.
go. You're
It's
welcome.
it's like I feel like they are so afraid to actually portray Superman as he is because he's really is a very powerful character. But there is a that's what makes Superman cool.
And that's just
Like
it though. Like he's
yeah.
not this god either. He is
Hmm.
absolutely has so many villains that are right all along there with him or even more powerful.
Brainiac,
You could make
Doomsday,
um
or the scheming of Lex Luthor, all of that. Like he really has a really cool
Dark
cast that you
Side.
the yeah dark side. Like he has grander than life villains and also villains that are more about testing his wit and his limits of he's all about saving
Humanity.
people and humanity.
Hmm.
You can make a good Superman game if you put your head into it, and I feel that will be like the if especially if they get the Arkham treatment, where it's not
Hmm.
rushed out to concede with a move to coincide with a movie, and it's something that's well thought out
Hmm.
with the proper production value, with the right voice cast. Imagine if it had the Tim Daly from Superman the animated series doing the voice, just
Hmm.
like Kevin Conroy did the voice for the Arkham games as he did in the animated
True.
series. And it's like you have the chance to do that. You just have to have the courage to do that.
Hmm.
But hey, they're scared of making Superman movies and doing them right.
That
So
also hurts my soul.
so
So
that's why I'm like I'm not surprised that apparently they're also struggling with them. But hey, the Arrowverse did right by Superman recently, so there is a
I
chance. There is
that single-handedly makes me want to try like dipping
more.
my toe into
Yeah.
the Arrowverse
Mhm.
just because of what they did with Superman and
Especially what they did with the return of Brandon Routh as the Superman Returns Superman, which in turn was also like a continuation of the Christopher Reeve Superman. But
right.
this time out, they did make him the Kingdom Come Superman with like an
Hmm.
almost comic accurate, with the closest to comic accurate suit I've ever seen, and have the right spirit of the character.
Hmm.
Man, I would recommend you at least try to watch the Superman scenes of Crisis on Infinite Earths to see what I mean. Even if it
Yeah.
can have TV cheapness on it, it's like it really nails what the character is, and I wish someone could do that for games.
Amen to that.
Yeah, so
So,
that was
yeah, that
oh, it's time for the news.
that
That was
was news for sure. And now on to the last thing because I make sure we want to not run ourselves too far.
hmm
Our next topic, which is also the main topic I believe that we're
hmm
talking about today, is Game of the Year 2019. Let's talk
Yes.
about it.
All right.
Um,
So I put my picks of what I thought were the 11 best games of 2019 back in the end of December, as well as some of the games that I thought were super disappointing or were bad, and other games that I liked but didn't quite love from 2019. And two of those games I actually beat, and I can confirm that even if I had beat them, they wouldn't have made my list. So Paul, so real quick,
yes.
because I did ask you guys if you wanted to make like a top 10 that I could display for you guys to see, like, oh, this is where the top 10, and obviously life got in the way and you guys couldn't do it. Do you have an idea of what were your 10 favorite games of 2019, or do you want to read mine?
I couldn't
And
tell you off the top
mhm,
of my head all 10, but I do have a couple that I would love to make a couple points
mhm.
on at
All
least.
right. So what I was planning on doing, because I have all three articles open, and I wanted to briefly
Oh,
mention the
awesome.
games that I did, and I would like for you to, like, if you also played it, to kind of give your take of what you thought.
Sure thing.
So the one that I'm gonna start with were the honorable mentions, because let's keep this positive. So before we start, so 2019 for games, how do you feel about it now that we're not, a couple days into 2020 and we look back on it? I've had a little bit of a turnaround on what I thought about the year, but I want to hear from you first.
I would say it was definitely it's one of those 2019 walked so 2020 can run.
Mm-hmm.
And it had its fair share of big games. It had
Mm-hmm.
its fair share of disappointments. It's had some
Yeah.
struggles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much you want to start name dropping things, but I'll just
Oh.
bring up a couple like Days
Mm-hmm.
Gone.
Yep.
Loved
That's
it.
in the
Um,
honorable mentions for me.
but
So yeah.
it was
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm kind of like going through it as well
Mm-hmm.
just
Go
to
for it.
get like a reminder of everything.
Yes.
Kingdom Hearts 3 of all things
Mm-hmm. Yep.
coming out in last January,
Mm-hmm.
which it's going to be what like pretty much what January
29th.
22nd.
January 29th was the day it came out last year. So we're close to the year
Yes.
anniversary of that game.
Oh, I was thinking of the new DLC. It's coming out on like the
Oh yes. Oh
22nd, I
yeah. I
think.
think it's the 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. And if you pay the extra $10, it comes with the concert, which I'm like, I can just watch that on YouTube. I know someone's
Right?
gonna upload it. So
For real. So anyway,
Mhm.
yes, had some good stuff. Had a lot of really like things that I was looking forward to a whole lot, like Ghost Recon Breakpoint, for
Mhm.
instance. I was
Oof.
Anthem.
Oof. Oh, we'll get to that. We'll definitely get to
Yeah.
that. Trust me.
I mean, even just the reinvigoration of modern warfare,
Mhm.
and just all of its surprises and twists. The new Mortal Kombat, Mario
Yep.
Maker,
Mhm.
uh, of course, your love for the new Destiny 2
Yep.
situation,
The expansion and
Kojima's
whatnot.
magnum opus,
Yep. So
Devil May Cry.
as you're mentioning it, so you're basically running through a lot of the games that I'm gonna
I
mention in this
am
list.
scrolling.
Oh yeah, no worries. Like I appreciate that, because I know you also read the list, and at least I know we have a common thread, and that we played a lot of these same games at least.
Mhm.
So at least we can have a conversation, a brief conversation about them. But I would say that yes, I think as I was going through 2019, I remembered how big 2017 and 2018 were for like the big games, the ones that
Mhm.
like defined the generation. Like especially in 2018, God of War and Red Dead Redemption were the ones that basically took all the spotlight. Even though
Right.
you had a Spider-Man there and Monster Hunter there and all that. So like because 2019 didn't have as big of a showstopper as those games, or even 2017 with Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey and
Mhm.
Horizon Zero Dawn, and for the Sony side, or Persona 5 even, like those years. So that's why at first I was like, man, this definitely feels like a big step backwards. I feel like it's like the weakest year since like 2014. But then when you start reading all these games, you start realizing this thing.
Mhm.
Decent to good games got better. We didn't have the standouts. So we
Right.
just got more interesting games. And because all those mid-tier games got better overall, I would even say that made for a more interesting year than 2018. Like when you think about like the things that came out. I don't call it the best, but my initial assessment that it was a really bad year for gaming and all that was kind of off when I
Mhm.
started looking back, because when I was trying to make my list, I was like, my freaking God, there's a lot of games that I played that I like that I'm going to be able to list here. So I think that proved my initial hypothesis wrong. I don't know if you agree with that.
I would say, yeah, I'd agree with that it was not like a step back, but
Mhm,
more of a
mhm.
shifting gears moment.
Yes, especially now
The
that we know that next gen is this year. It
mhm.
definitely was like the big bangers were saved for the end of the generation. So for anyone that was missing their big showstopper games, welcome to the new decade because they're coming
Mm.
this year.
True that.
So yeah, so we're going real quick by the list. So I can take it from you here, and because again, like I was mentioning, I did this list kind of like from my perspective. So I put a I put a warning there that the order of this list and the games in this list did not represent the entirety of the people at Statics Media. So a game that may have been my number one may not be Paul's number one, and we can hear. And I'm gonna kind of hear it from him. So starting with my honorable mentions. So I put Apex Legends there. So Paul, remember when Apex completely dropped out of nowhere?
Yep.
What a big week that was, right?
That was a very strange, surreal experience
Yes.
because there was no like
Not a
mention of it
whiff.
at all, no
Not a
marketing.
whiff.
We thought they were going to announce the next Titanfall, and they're like, "No, it's a battle royale game," and it immediately dropped off. And then they said, "Yeah, and it's out today."
Yeah.
I went,
So
"What?"
which is so like it's so antithetical on how you release a game these days.
Yeah.
But I think that worked out well for them because when you hear, oh, they're making a battle royale on the Titanfall universe without Titans, get out of here. If they
Right.
had announced that and waited a couple of days and months to release, a lot of bad press would have
Mm.
happened because everyone could be skeptical. It's EA of all people. They're capitalizing on the Fortnite Battle Royale craze with
Oh
their
yeah.
own. And they're doing it with Titanfall, which historically, Titanfall 2 was was a really great game that didn't sell because EA completely screwed up when they released that game to just try to fight Call of Duty in 2016.
And they
And
put it
instead,
between Call of Duty and
and
Battlefield.
Battlefield. Yeah, exactly. And they were like, of course, EA was not gonna have the budget to market both games, which one they ended up marketing for Battlefield because it's been out longer. They were not gonna market the newer guy in the town, even though Titanfall 2 was a better game in my opinion. So the fact that it was EA doing this and then they dropped out of nowhere, they were like, oh, "This is not gonna work," and it worked. It did.
Hmm.
I hate multiplayer games. I don't like. They don't grab me as much. I like having something that's PVE focused. I like co-op, of course, don't get me wrong. And the fact that this battle royale really grabbed me for like a good 2 weeks. That's all I played. I think it says a lot that the kind of game that I did because it plays so well. I think that's what Apex has that Fortnite and PUBG don't have. It has great shooting. It has such
True.
silky smooth shooting. I love the combat in that game. I hate the combat in the other two games. So yeah, and twice in my honorable mentions if I did play it, I only played it for 2 weeks and I dropped off because again it didn't keep my attention. But is Apex one of your favorite games, Paul?
It is not. I
No.
loved it, especially once again
Mm-hmm.
because I adored the shooting, and
Mm-hmm.
all of my friends were playing, so it was so easy to find
Mm-hmm. Friends.
people
Mm-hmm.
to play with. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you could just jump in, do your thing, and have fun with it.
Yes, and unfortunately, it didn't have the legs for me, and also the monetization started to get a little out of control. With like you could buy skins, but there was also loot boxes here, and they were very expensive and all that. And that I feel the narrative for the game kind of got modeled as the year went through, especially how the first month was like we accumulated 50 million players, which was like
Yeah.
crazy how big it was growing, and then it just stopped and it got quiet. So hence why it's in my honorable mention. So I would assume it would have been in yours too. So
Yeah. At
okay, so
least
yeah.
fair.
But hey, at the very least, it gave Respawn a win after Titanfall 2 because I still stand by that more people should have played Titanfall 2. That was an awesome game. But
Definitely.
it definitely set Respawn for quite a year, and we'll talk about that later.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's Borderlands 3. So Paul, what were your thoughts on Borderlands 3?
I initially adored it
Mm-hmm.
because fortunately I did not go through the entire game series beforehand
Mm-hmm.
like some
Yep.
people.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
We're
so
gonna.
I got to
I'll
really
talk about
enjoy it.
that. Yeah.
And on a whim, I picked Zane
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy, which
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting choice.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was it was between him and the
Fl-
mech person.
Flack
And
or Mosey.
yeah, Muzzy, yeah.
Okay.
I liked the way Flack looked, but I wasn't as much of a fan of his play style
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not the activate this thing and just let it do its thing most of
Mm-hmm.
the time, which is weird considering Zane has a drone that you activate it
Mm-hmm.
and let it do
Yeah.
its thing.
Exactly.
But I don't know what it is. I just really enjoyed like his. I think he was Scottish. He was really sassy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He was like the old cool grandpa,
Yeah.
and I loved his character a whole lot, especially after I had chosen him. So
Yeah.
I just picked it right, I think.
But what about the game? What do you think, like outside the characters and all that, like the actual Borderlands 3 game?
Shortest answer I could think of is um, it's more of the same, which I enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
until I didn't.
Yep. Yep. Big yep. So you wonder why did Paul said at least I like playing Borderlands 3, having not played the series recently. Can there ever be too much Borderlands, Paul?
Yes.
Yes, there can be too much Borderlands, especially when in the same year, Big Gearbox was like, let's shadow drop the remaster of the original Borderlands. And it just so happens I never fully played the original Borderlands other than the first 5 hours on a free version on PS3 that was released on PlayStation Plus back in 2012. And reason why I didn't play it more because Borderlands 2 had come out, and I would rather play the one that was hot at the time, and it was awesome until I never beat it. And I decided to play it again and again in a different console. And so yeah, I actually did play through the entirety of Borderlands 1 and its DLC because it was included in the version that it came out. Then they also released the free DLC that was setting up Borderlands 3 and Borderlands 2. And I used that as an
Mhm.
excuse to not only play that, but also the DLC of Borderlands 2 I didn't play. So
Also
by the
true.
time that I reached Borderlands 3 and I started moving and shooting and all that, I'm like, I'm sick of this. It is literally the exact same thing. Only thing that is better is that the shooting feels a little bit tighter, a little bit. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it was too much Borderlands for me, and that's the reason why I was like telling you that I'd actually managed to beat it last weekend because I did take a break. I was like after 5 hours playing it. Do you remember the big rant I did to you and PJ? I was like,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
sick with this, and PJ was all mortified. I was like, and he just couldn't wrap his mind around the fact that I didn't like playing it, but it was just too much Borderlands, and especially when this one didn't change much, and the things that it changed, like the story, where I thought were actually worse. I will say this: after having finished the game, I hate the Calypso twins. I hate them. That story was cringy AF, and my God, that was like I was hoping the writing was gonna get better, but nothing made it clear to me how much I hated the Calypso twin story until I played the DLC, which was actually more Handsome Jack's focused, even though you know the character's dead from the previous game. Spoiler for people that didn't play that one
Just
8
throwing
years
that one
ago.
in.
Um, just seeing shades of Handsome Jack and more toned down writing that was a little bit clearer, it really showed me that's why I wasn't enjoying Borderlands 3 as much, because man, this story was like cringy and it got in your way too much. I hated standing there waiting to finish a conversation. That wasn't that big of a problem in the previous ones. It always felt like it had the bare minimum dialogue that would prevent you from going out and shooting. This one didn't. It was just a lot of
Hmm.
standing there waiting for the cringy lines to finish so you can go do the Borderlands things. The shooting is
Yeah.
fun though. Looting is fun for people that still like that kind of game and didn't play anything of it until this one. I think it gave more of the same, which is okay. I would say it was just not enough for me. So moving on.
Yeah.
You mentioned Days Gone. You said you kind of mentioned it at
Yes.
the beginning. So do you beat this game, or did you fall?
I um I did actually. I
Okay.
beat pretty much all of it. I don't think I actually finished like that like final cutscene
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, the reveal. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
spoil it for
Oh yeah,
anybody that hasn't, but definitely go do that for anybody that hasn't
exactly.
played it.
The one that sets
Um,
up the sequel, sort of, quote unquote, or a spiritual success, or kind of positions it as a spiritual successor to another Sony franchise,
yes.
something like that. Yeah,
I wasn't fully sure what they were going for, honestly,
yeah.
but excuse
For
me.
people that don't care about spoilers, the thing that that thing teases is a connection to an old Sony franchise and also Sony Band's previous franchise, Siphon Filter. So
Wait, is that what that
yeah,
was?
yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, I did
So
not catch that in the slightest.
exactly. So yeah. But what do you think of the game? So
I mean, I loved it because I really enjoyed every animation involving the motorbike. It felt
hmm
like they put a lot of work in that. I mean, they definitely said in promotional material that the bike was as much
hmm
of a character as the others,
Oh, it
and
sure was.
I felt that because I was taking care of that thing and making sure it was good. I was customizing it, and
Mhm. When you run out of gas and you're trying to push it down the slopes as you're trying to escape from the zombie hordes, man, those were fun.
fortunately,
Yeah, those were
I
fun stuff.
never ran out of gas except for maybe one time. I was very careful to never run out.
I would say that went from annoying to super cool for me because nothing makes your heart race like seeing the horde behind you and then you're running out of gas and trying to make the slopes to try to run away. So, so yeah, Days Gone. I think it was an interesting game, but also, you know how the Sony PlayStation 4 exclusives have been like really high quality, like a lot
Yes.
of them. I feel this was the first one that was definitely rough compared to the other ones. Like, you play
Hmm.
you have a PlayStation 4 Pro, right? Yeah.
Yes,
So I don't. I have the regular console, and man, that thing had a lot of bugs initially.
for sure.
And what's funny is that that game got 7 patches in its first week, almost a patch every day, which kind of
Yeah,
told you that for some reason that game was like years in development.
for
It still
sure. Like, and
it
it's
still came out.
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous. It's like I really love the Oregon setting. It's very unique as a setting compared to other open worlds because it's like the overgrown green Pacific Ocean. There's just
Oh
something.
yeah.
It feels cool. I don't know if you agree. It just feels like when
Oh
you
no,
look at it, you
definitely.
just start like imagining how cool, like just being in that kind of cool settings, and like of weather wise and all that, and then seeing like the weather changes was really cool. Randomly like
Definitely.
snowing.
I believe it was set in Oregon, which is
Yes,
not a very common setting, obviously,
at
but I
all.
loved it. And
Oh,
I
at all.
think it
Yeah,
was because the studio
was
was
there.
based in Oregon,
Yeah,
right?
they said that the reason why they did Oregon was that they wanted to recreate something that people could feel lived in by, and they looked outside their window and there was Oregon, and they literally did Oregon. So yeah, it was a game that initially I wasn't too hot on because I don't know if you agree, the story is really slow at the beginning, like
It
very
is,
very almost
definitely.
obnoxiously slow, that gave me shades of the slow start of Red Dead 2 but worse.
I
uh
was almost going to liken it, crazy enough, I know you're going to hate me for this. I
uh-huh.
almost likened it to Horizon Zero Dawn's opening
Oh, okay, yeah. I
because it
can
was just
agree
so
with
slow.
that. Yeah, because Horizon was also a very slow start, but the difference was that Horizon for me was a more fantastical setting that grabbed me earlier. This one was a more
Mm,
like grounded setting that took its time
true.
a little bit more before like it really grabs you. I feel Days Gone is definitely backloaded. Like the cooler things about that game are almost 60 hours in.
Very true.
And to me, it's so sad that they held so much of what makes the game really good until the very end. And because I know a lot of people, this game historically was reviewed by people that didn't even finish it, which was so unprofessional by so many reviewers. And they didn't even mention some of the cooler things that happened near the end, which kind of whenever you experience it and then go read those reviews, you're like, huh, you didn't finish it because you're saying this stuff that totally is not what you're criticizing the game of, because it was actually there if you actually
Yeah.
finished it. But again, something to say about games being too long, and this one could have used some editing. So why this one is in my honorable mentions list here is like, I feel this could have been a really 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 great game if the best parts that were at the end were more evenly split, because I did play this game a lot. I got a platinum trophy. So that tells
Dang,
you a lot
really?
that yeah, I did get the platinum trophy of this thing. So I played this thing for a whole month. I was really enjoying it. So until I started thinking, yeah, that was a lot of filler and fluff before you get to like the second part of the game that feels like an entirely different game.
It
So,
really did. I felt like I
uh,
was playing the game and its sequel
yep,
all in the same sitting.
exactly. But the good thing is that it sold well and people did like it. Like the reviews were tepid, 72 Metacritic, but it had a lot of fans. So I can't wait to see what Sony Ben does after it. So
Right. Yes, for sure.
moving on from that one, I think this one's kind of near and dear to your heart
Very
because you
much.
once said that the second game in this series was your favorite game of all time in a
True.
previous show for people that listened to us back then. But Kingdom Hearts 3, the 13-year wait between the sequel and this one, even though there
Very
were
true.
spin-offs that were very important to the story released in between. And God bless people that decided to jump straight to Kingdom Hearts 3 and not play those because they for sure were gonna be lost. So
Poor Xbox players, I'll just say that,
oh
because
yes.
they
Oh
didn't get
yes.
any sort of explanation
Yeah.
before this.
They're finally getting it though, almost a year later, which I almost feel bad for
Excuse
them.
me.
So bless
Oh,
you.
yes.
Yeah, because it's coming out on Game Pass, starting this month sometime.
Dang.
So for Xbox players that want to see what the weirdness is about, you can finally play the entire series in your console of choice.
It does make me very happy to have some people getting access to it even after all this time. I
Mm-hmm.
think it should have not taken all of that time to do, but it's just such a great storyline,
Mm-hmm.
with especially when you were a kid like me and
Yeah.
everybody else when they came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And being able to grow up with the characters. I will say that is one of the biggest things that I think I struggle with, and that I would say even Hollywood and
Mm-hmm.
all entertainment groups struggle with the most, is creating a sequel that can somehow both grow with its audience and
Mm-hmm.
draw in new people. Because
Yes.
I very much feel like on paper, this game was tailor made for people that were like me and
Mm-hmm.
you,
Yeah.
that like grew up with this series. It's got so much going on in it.
Yeah.
And then when it came to the execution of it, I feel like I don't know if it was Disney like pulling the teeth of this or
Mm-hmm.
something, but it was very cut back. It was
Mm-hmm.
very like, okay, we can't put all of this in here.
Yes.
Let's pull it out of here.
So, just to give some context, at least from my side, I never played Kingdom Hearts until I played the entire collection for the first time in 2018. So,
Really?
yeah, I didn't. It was always a series I wanted to get into. Those games came out at a time where I wasn't buying games. My dad was buying them, and if my dad found them, it looked cheesy or anything, they wouldn't buy it, which sucked. Not like today, where I can buy whatever I want. Yeah, work. But yeah, so I didn't know. I even noticed that having played the entire series, even Kingdom Hearts 2, which is the one I enjoyed the most, probably only beaten by Birth by Sleep. If I have to really marinate about it, or the ones that I enjoyed of that collection,
Oh wow.
3 really felt like it was missing stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it was missing a lot of what made the the end sections or post game sections of those other games really cool, and it really almost cut to the bare minimum any Final Fantasy thing of it. Like it felt like it was more of a Disney game, right? Like
Hmm.
if I'm perfectly honest, it was like the Kingdom Hearts characters and mostly Disney stuff. Whereas the Final Fantasy thing, the Muggle that sells you stuff.
Yeah. And then we'll just briefly mention the entire Frozen world and how
Mm,
they had an unedited Let It Go sequence
yep,
that would randomly cut to Sora, Donald, and Goofy saying, literally, and I quote, "What is going on right now?"
yep. Which, for anyone not following the series, that's pretty much everyone watching a Kingdom Hearts trailer. But I would say the game has a lot of heart. It touched me to no end, the ending sections of that game. Even as someone that had recently just experienced the series, just a year before, like 5 months before this game came out,
Hmm.
everything like in the ending section when all the keyblades are happening. Sorry, spoilers, people. If you were a Kingdom Hearts fan, you would already played it, so whatever. When all the fallen keys start helping you fight the darkness, or even the ending sections, you see all the reunions and all that, and the music is hitting. I had tears in my eyes,
Hmm.
and I experienced this thing late. I can't imagine how you felt while playing that thing. Do you had a similar reaction?
I thought it was just a very it was all just strange to me, honestly.
Yeah, because it made you realize, it made you reevaluate your life, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't quite the end for sure, but just can't imagine anything else but that moment where Woody from Toy Story, of all things, absolutely dismantles Xehanort by
Hmm.
saying that nobody loved him. And that was not something I ever expected to see in a Kingdom Hearts video
Yep.
game.
But hey, that's Kingdom Hearts, and for all that game's problems, and I told you that when I beat it and let it sit, I started thinking about the grindier parts of like 300 crabs, find Olaf when he's screaming, "I'm over here! I'm over
Oh, I
here!"
couldn't find him.
And the thing was that you do that over here, but you should like lower the volume if you're far away. The
Right.
guy always sounded like he was like literally behind you. You
Hmm.
were just going in circles. So yeah, so the problems of that game started like popping up more in my mind, but I'm glad I did play the series, and that secret ending, right?
Oh yeah, that honestly had me. I don't know how they managed to draw me back in after
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm done with Kingdom Hearts, and then they showed that little secret video of them
Mm-hmm.
trapped in the world. That no, I almost said world that
The
never
world
was.
end, the world ends with you.
Yes,
World,
world
yeah.
ends with you,
Mm-hmm.
and the Yuzora
Mm-hmm.
stuff with old boy inside the his world, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and that was just like, what is going on,
Yeah.
people?
So yeah, so they got us for a fourth one. Whenever that happens in the
Yeah,
next decade.
they got me.
Yeah. Moving on, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, which I don't think you play, right?
I did not.
All right, so I'll briefly say this. I was a big Marvel Ultimate Alliance fan growing up back in 2006. I played those games a lot. I replayed and replayed them. All my Marvel knowledge came from those games. Loved that first game. The second game, not so much. The third game, I was loving until I didn't. Like it was a fun dungeon crawler. You know how those like the games that are over the cameras at the top and you're moving through
Yeah.
the team and beating stuff up. It's a fun game, especially for the Switch. If you want to kind of like just be running around and just beat the crap out of people with a fun team of superheroes. But the changes they made for the series for that game were for the
Hmm.
worst. Like not having the entire roster of characters level up with you. So you had to individually grind out every character for them to be at a level you needed for you to continue with a story. Really sucked the fun out of it. I always like mix and matching different teams because when you have like a roster of 30 superheroes, you want to mix and play with all of them, not just play with four of them,
Hmm.
right? So that just became tiring and it was a bummer. Even though I still had a lot of fun remembering why I liked those original games, I still wish they still gave me the exact same feeling I had when I played them. So that was Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3.
All
Moving
right,
on.
cool. Yeah.
Sekiro.
So real quick, I don't want to cut you off, but
Mm-hmm.
I do know like we are going to get through, I guess, the Sekiro and our
Mm-hmm.
last thing, and we'll probably be running out of time for
Mm-hmm.
our episode today. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make sure that we were having
Yeah.
enough times
Oh yeah. I
or
think we
space
definitely
for our game of the year choice.
yes. Yeah, we definitely have some because the bad games I don't even want to talk about them. I just want to mention them.
Very true.
So I think we'll definitely have time based on the clock here. I think
Awesome.
yeah, we are just shy over an hour.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so for anyone listening, I think with the thing we're trying to do here with the X button, we definitely want to let the conversation go, but hopefully it goes over an hour, but not over 2 hours. So so yeah, so real quick, Sekiro, the game that won Game of the Year on the Game
Yes.
Awards. Not
And I
even
did
close
not
to my
finish it.
yeah, and not even close to my top 10. And I've made the decision that I'm never gonna play that game again because
I
boy, it broke me. It broke me. This one broke me. This one
I
broke me
want to go
fast.
back to
Yeah.
it, but man, um,
I did get past the snake. Remember when I asked about the snake?
yes, you
That
were
was a cool
struggling.
section. Then I found the guy with the horse, or what was it, like a Taurus?
Yeah,
That one broke
yeah,
me. That's I was like, yep, I'm done. This one, I can't with this.
yeah.
It's
It's
too
crazy.
hard.
Like
Yeah.
I had less trouble with him because he spent so much time running up to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think what my biggest struggle is when there's a sustained, constant hitting. like me having to deflect each thing as it's coming. Because when I played Dark Souls, for
Mm-hmm.
all my listeners, I was a heavy dodger. I wore
Mm-hmm.
light armor. I needed to be able to move around. So this was forcing me because whether you like it or not, objectively, it does not have nearly as good hitboxes and
Mm-hmm.
invincibility frames as Dark Souls in those series because you
No.
could dodge roll out of
Like,
so many things.
yeah, this is more about parrying. It's definitely more
Yes.
about like it's more like a perfect rhythm game of like hitting that parrying and keep hitting and all of that.
Hmm.
It really breaks your mind if you come from the Souls experience.
Yeah.
And my only Souls experience that I really beat was Bloodborne, which was also a little more aggressive, but it was all about dodging also. So but this
Hmm.
one really broke me because it has so many heartbreaking one hit kills when you're about to hit a boss that I was like, nope, I'm out. Like
Yeah.
it's really like when you're fighting the giant with the big thing at the the giant with the wood thing at his back, and he's doing like the big somersaults and jumps on you or grabs you and then throws you behind you and then makes you drop off the ledge. It's
Yeah.
like
I know
I
what you're
give it
talking about.
merit because I feel a lot of people really did get into this game, and I'm glad that it got Game of the Year honors from some people.
Hmm.
And PJ, who reviewed it for us, which bless his soul, I can't imagine having to review this game. It's so hard. He did review it. He did like it, but I think his opinion has soured on it ever since because he remembers the frustration. But yeah, Sekiro. Hopefully you get back to it and you finish it. I mean, we're in
Yeah.
a bit of a lull right now. Maybe you can go back.
Maybe I can just hope that I have the patience for it.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very unique game and I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. But you know what's going to scratch my itch for all that stuff
Mm-hmm.
even more is Ghost of Tsushima coming
Yeah.
out this year,
Oh
boy.
yes, in the summer. I can't wait. That'll be
Is
a
it
top.
summer?
Yeah, it's summer
Oh
or
man,
yeah, it's gonna be late summer from what they said at the Game Awards, where they showed a long trailer that looked beautiful.
heck
So,
yes.
and that'll be the final PS4 exclusive of consequence before PS5. So, kind of bittersweet. And then the final honorable mention, The Division 2. You
Yes.
didn't play this one, right?
I played it for about 2 weeks,
Okay.
same as you did Apex
So,
Legends.
yeah. So, my thing with The Division 2, did you play the first one, the first game?
I did.
I like the first game better, but not for
Really?
the reasons that one would think. The Division 2 is a much better game mechanically. It feels better. I feel like it's more fleshed out. And in a crisis of infinite looter shooters, as we once said, where there were
Hmm.
a lot of games about looting and all that. Historically, that genre, unless you were a Borderlands, you launch with a lot of problems,
Hmm.
and it takes months, if not a year, for you to fix it and to hit like a right place. That happened with the original Division. Happened with the Destiny games. It hopefully happens to Anthem after the disaster that it was that game this year. The Division 2 launched complete and the right and in the right with the right balance and with the right things for it. That
Mm.
said, they really did no things with the story. I felt they decided to make as bare minimum of a story because they thought people like more the gameplay than anything else, which I can kind of see if they read the heat mapping of the first game. But Washington to me is not as interesting as a snowed, deserted New York. The overgrown Washington to me just looked samey.
Yeah.
It just looked samey and it looked generic. It felt like I was playing Ghost Recon Wildlands, if I'm perfectly honest. Which
Yeah.
I
I
went
could.
on a rant that Ubisoft games started to get looking a little samey recently,
True.
especially with the other
Outside
Tom
of
Clancy game that came out.
right.
So
I'd say the only exception was For Honor.
yeah,
They did a very good job making that one unique in every
very
way.
unique. And Siege is still unique
And Siege is
among the
still
thing.
unique, even though the
Yeah.
motifs are very similar.
Yeah, as I was trying to finish off this game last week, I realized I played the last mission of the game without me realizing it was the last mission of the game. It gave me a cutscene about thank you for re-enabling all the different parts of Washington D.C. We have our whole base covered. Thank you for this. And then I saw no more missions. I was like, wait, that was it.
Huh.
And then I went to read. It's like, oh, if you reach level 30, you're gonna reach end game mode where we're gonna have a new kind of enemy drop into the map, and it works you towards the raids and all that. I'm like, I'm already playing Destiny. I only have time for one of these kind of games. I'm out. So that was a Division 2 for me. Do you like this one though?
I mean, I will say in agreement with you as far
Mm-hmm.
as I loved the atmosphere and motif of the
Mm-hmm.
deserted, cold New
Mm-hmm.
York more so. I have
Mm-hmm.
been to Washington, D.C., so
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of cool
Yeah.
being able to like see it all.
Yeah, I have been to DC also. My thing is that I feel a game like Splinter Cell Conviction from Ubisoft used the setting a little better for it
I
to
will
look
agree.
cooler. So that's why I was like, I couldn't stop not comparing the two, and especially with that. But I have been to DC also back in 2005, in the days of George W. Bush. We'll
Hmm.
not talk in politics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So.
don't think I got to go to like 2010 or something, but I will say something else that you brought up.
Mhm.
Ubisoft, you cowards, give us another freaking
Splinter Cell.
Splinter Cell game. I
Yep.
almost said Silent Hill.
Oh yeah. Also, Konami, give us Silent Hills, please. Give us,
Crossover game,
yes.
Splinter Cell and Silent Hill.
Yeah.
He's finally haunted by all the people he's killed.
Yeah. So, all right. So we finally went through those were my honorable mention. I think those would have been also yours based on the conversations we were having.
Yeah, pretty much
So
roughly.
not to be too negative now. So I'm just gonna blow through this other list, which were the most disappointing games of 2019. I put Crackdown 3 and Metro Exodus. Crackdown 3, real quick.
Oof.
It felt like I was playing Crackdown 1 again, but not at school. I would have rather just played the first game again, who had a little cooler personality.
Mm.
Metro Exodus hurts putting it here because remember the experience I had with this game?
Yep, I remember it,
Yeah,
and we talked about it a lot.
yeah. So I'll just say this: like, it's a really great game if you play it on enhanced consoles. Don't play this on our standard PS4. It's gonna crash a lot. Then it's gonna crash at the most inopportune time, and all the time that you're spending upgrading, doing the side stuff. By the time you reach the end game, all of that will be wiped out. Like if you never did it, and it's gonna make you scream and punch a pillow and want to break a controller and make you go to the easiest difficulty so you can kill the Harambe gorillas of the final level with one headshot shotgun and just get it done with and delete it. That's what happened to me. Moving on. Anthem.
Wait,
The
I want to say that I also disagree with Alejandro on
Yeah,
Metro Exodus. I enjoyed
yeah,
it,
exactly.
but then we had the very reverse opposite
Hmm.
experience with Control.
Yes, exactly.
Um,
And I will talk about that one later.
yeah, so
Which
I
was so
continue.
interesting. It was
Uh,
so interesting how that happened. But to me,
yeah,
that's gonna make
very
our
weird.
show more interesting. We don't have to agree on everything.
Hmm.
We can all have our own opinions. So, like I said, if you're interested in playing Metro Exodus, I would recommend it if you play it on PC or Xbox One X or PlayStation 4 Pro, which is where Paul played it, and he had a good time
Yes.
with it. I can only speak on my experience, so that's why I was on the disappointing list. But that's the caveat. Anthem, poor Bioware. That's it. Really is like I was hoping they were gonna turn it around throughout the year, and then they canceled the roadmap. The thing is still busted till today. Like reviewing that game was soul crushing, and there was like the horror stories of how that game literally was in development since 2012, but only went into development until the E3 demo went live, and everyone was like, "That's the game,"
Yeah.
and literally the developers were like, "Wait, that's the game." I think that's just everything about how badly managed that game was. And apparently, right now, they're in the middle of rebuilding it from scratch, which good
Which
luck to them.
Yeah, I
Um,
am genuinely curious to
yeah,
see what they're going to do because seeing you in like a exosuit
mm.
flying around
It's
just
Iron
looks
Man. It's
oh
Iron Man the
cool.
game. It's Iron Man the game. And that was the coolest part of that thing. And the game limited you with how you would use the flying because it would always overheat. And the shooting was bad. It was all about it, but it's all about the ults. But the ults were always on cooldown. So it was like he's just literally pressing left and right trigger for thunder and whatever it is. I miss Mass Effect. It's sad to think that Mass Effect quote unquote died for this, but apparently they're working on a new Mass Effect. But I don't know if Bioware has
Are
it in
they?
them. Yeah, apparently they.
Uh,
Yeah, they haven't officially announced it. When there was this report about Bioware basically admitting defeat and are allegedly working overtime to relaunch this game completely overhauled from its systems and all of that. They let it slip that one of the main producers of Anthem moved on to start working on Mass Effect. So I'd rather have a new Mass Effect because I enjoyed Andromeda more than I did Anthem, which is a scorching thought in itself.
yeah.
Moving
Mm.
on from that, Wolfenstein Youngblood. Did you play this one?
I did not. My brother did and said it was disappointing.
Oh, far, man. I would go far as saying war. It's definitely one of the worst games of the year, and it was almost the worst game I played this year. Had it not been for another one that I'll mention briefly there, but I love the Wolfenstein single player games that Bethesda has been releasing. They've been awesome. The second
Mm,
one's story is bonkers, and I couldn't believe that they pushed the story as far as they did.
yeah.
And how do you follow that up? Let's try to follow the looter shooter style craze with co-op and all the heart and all the emotion that the other Wolfenstein, because that's the thing with the other Wolfenstein games. There was emotion, there was actual real character development and all that in those games that managed to balance out well the badass nature of screaming, of killing Nazis and all that. This game was all about the BAMF. It's about, and you were like playing co-op with like the daughters of BJ Blazkowicz, and
Hmm.
every time that you're killing anyone, you have to be like cursing at your sister to kind of like earn like the points and all that. And the Nazis have health bars now with levels, which
Oh,
doesn't make any
what?
sense. Yes, that doesn't, like if it was a freaking Destiny or Borderlands, and weird hub world, the worst final boss fight of any game in recent memory. Screw this game. Moving on. Um, Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Stop. Just let me stop you right there. I was so excited for this game. It was going to have everything I needed. It was like the survival
Yeah.
feel of it, and it was like Wildlands, but more intense.
Yep.
And then what did they do, Alejandro?
We released The Division 2 earlier this year. You know why we need to flood the market with? A version
More.
of that with Ghost Recon now, completely with some of the worst storytelling and acting I have ever seen in a freaking AAA video game. Let's put microtransactions up the wazoo. Let's basically put literally all our games that we've been making all together in one, because why? The generation is ending, and we need to put a release in the holidays to say, hey, we put a game for the fall season. And then the game was glitchy AF. It was like you fighting weird drones with health. It was a loot game in a year that didn't need any more loot game. Oh my god. Like, and I enjoyed Wildlands. Fine. I still have it installed there. It was way too big of a game, but it had something cool in it. This one
Mhm.
didn't even have that. And you know what? The subtitle of this game, Breakpoint, it's meta. This was the breakpoint for Ubisoft. This
Yep.
game did bad. Almost worst reviewed game of the year for like a big game. Ubisoft literally delayed their entire slate because of this game, because they were like, you know what? We can't be doing this anymore. We have to work harder. And you know what? If that's the takeaway of this game, I'll take it.
Yep. And honestly, it wasn't even like a work harder thing because the concept was
Mm-hmm.
there and clearly like they had it. And based on their reveal trailer and everything
Mm-hmm.
of like what they said the game was, and then
Exactly.
out of nowhere it seemed like it was a very different game
Yes.
when it
I
came
don't know
out.
how
So
you go from that reveal to what it was in the
yeah,
same year.
um,
I
I
don't get it.
personally think they were working on the game. It was all coming along very well. They had the whole idea behind it, and an executive walks by, says, "You know what? I don't like that. You should change it," and then keeps walking. And
Yep.
they go, "Well, I guess we gotta change all of this."
And you can definitely tell with the quality of everything.
Hmm.
Man, it's so sad that Ghost Recon has fallen this down. And hopefully, again, this was the break point for Ubisoft, for them to realize that they can't be doing the same game over and over and over and over again. Like, it's too
Hmm.
much. They're flooding the market with the same games over and over, and that it's not even fun anymore. So delete. No more disappointments. Real quick, now the games that I thought were my sort of game of the year, so I'm gonna fly through this one. Just you're gonna chime in whenever.
Yeah,
So we
and
can,
I'll add a couple things here and there.
yeah. So I did a top 11 games because I realized that Star Wars Battlefront 2 released a celebration edition, and I played this game way too much this year to not consider it one of my favorite games that I played this year. What a redemption! What a freaking redemption for Star Wars Battlefront 2. Man, remember how doomed that game was 2 years ago? Almost
Hmm.
3 years ago? with the microtransaction fiasco of 2017,
Yep.
DICE put the work and did it for free. And any remnant of pay to win has been completely jettisoned
Yep.
out of that game. It was thrown next to the Mustafar River, next to Anakin's legs and arm. It was like all of that has been like everything that plagued this game back in the day, completely gone. It's one of the most fun Star Wars multiplayer shooters I ever played now on this version, and with everything they added, the Clone Wars, the Rise of Skywalker stuff, and they're still adding more, and the Clone Trooper Commandos adding, like all the free stuff that they've been adding is so good. Like I never expected DICE to really turn this game around like they did, because they haven't even done that with Battlefield 5, but they did it with this. So really cool.
Sorry, I do want to add one thing, because I still look at it with a bit of some jaded glasses on, because I still look at it and only see a very dumbed down Battlefield game. I love it when I'm in the thick of things, and for a second I forget, because I'm seeing the blaster bolts flying, I'm hearing the sounds, which they did fantastic with the music and everything, but sometimes just the way the maps were created, the way the game types are, is completely broken. And it is very difficult to step back into that, because I did try to go back and play it, and I did like all right in a couple of matches, but
it takes a while for you to warm up. Just give it
really does.
Definitely give it some time. I would say play the co-op mode that they added, because it's just PvE. It's gonna that's where everything's gonna start clicking with you, that by the time you go back to regular multiplayer, you're gonna be smoking guys left and right, and then it's gonna just click with you. Or just play the hero showdown mode, where it's like the 2v2 mode of using the heroes.
I've seen that, and it's very
super cool. It's really cool that they, especially because Call of Duty had the 2v2 gunfight mode. It's so funny, like Battlefront also had it, but you playing as Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan versus General Grievous or Kylo Ren, and
waiting for
mixing
that
and matching. Yeah, so it's really fun. So for anyone that wrote off Battlefront 2 after the whole disaster 2 years ago, the game that you can play now, and you can sometimes even buy for $5. It's much better than what it is. And the Celebration Edition that they released this year, which basically you getting literally all the cosmetics unlocked, which are not at all affecting gameplay. I think it's a nice gesture to give DICE for what they've done, because they literally haven't been nickeling and diming at all after the initial fiasco that EA forced them to do. So good on them. Good to have a good multiplayer Star Wars Battlefront game again. Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Yes.
You reviewed this one.
I
did. Really loved it. I did enjoy it too. Yeah, I did enjoy it a lot. Really like the campaign. Those night vision sections where you're storming the house so quietly are so tense, and then you killing the wrong civilian and the game not ending, and you're just seeing the kid flocking to the mom that you just shoot and all that. That game effed me up. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I was like, man, that's messed up. That can be messed up.
See, what was crazy is I didn't catch that part, because I didn't shoot anybody like on accident. Most of the time I would get hit first because I was so confused as what was going on. But I remember just taking out people left and right half the time, and I don't know. I guess I felt pretty all right. And the part that they were saying was going to be extremely like controversial with like the idea that you were going to smother this baby so that you were quiet, but if you kill the baby, it actually ends that, like it resets. So I was like, you're not supposed to. So it's not like
it was inconsistent in that way. It was a little inconsistent with some of those stuff, but in the times that it wasn't, it really like the severity of some things like really made me think. And I'm like, it's been a while since Call of Duty made me feel this way. And I, the previous year, said that I was swearing off Call of Duty forever, because they ditched the campaign to follow the Battle Royale trend with Black Ops 4. That was literally one of my more disappointing games that year. And for them to bring back the campaign this year, and for it to be really good, one of the better ones, even though I still prefer Modern Warfare 1 and 2 from 2007 and 2009 better, and even the first Black Ops, I would say that good on them, because they got me back on board. Multiplayer is too tryhard. Way too tryhard. Even though I was playing it a couple of days ago to just unwind and listen to my podcast, I was like, it's still really, really, really tough, because only the real veterans are playing that game. And what a disappointment with the co-op. What a big disappointment. But I really love the campaign. It was one of my favorite things this year. And I think
I
it was
will
one of the,
say,
yeah, it was one of yours too.
yeah, I found out. So with the co-op, it's very much a you have to play with a. It's like a raid
Yeah, play it
from
with people.
Destiny.
Yeah, it's
You
definitely
have
play with
to
people.
be coordinating. You have
Hmm.
to set your loadouts correctly. You have to pick the right attachments and weapons
Hmm.
for what you're going to go with.
Yeah.
In which that usually means pick the ballistic shield and thank me
Hmm.
later
Yes,
because
because that mode
oh
is literally enemies hitting you from behind all the time. I'm spawning completely unethically behind you and all that. So it's a playing it in matchmaking is a disaster. I will give it a shot with people that's my thing. I don't have a crew to play it with, so I think that kind of that kind of hurts it for me. But maybe we should try it one time, especially since we're PSN friends. Because I really
yeah,
want to play through those co-op missions. Spec Ops was so good in previous Modern Warfares. I wanted this one to be just as good. But it wasn't. But hey, it's still one of my favorite games of the year. I never expect that to say about Call of Duty ever again.
for real.
Moving on, Gears 5. You didn't play this one, right?
I did not. My brother did once
All right.
again, but I watched him play this one.
Yes. Really pretty game. And the best exclusive Microsoft had released in almost 3 years. Ironically, the last great exclusive was Gears 4. So once again, they're still relying on their same old, but and a console that has been wanting for exclusive content at the very least, this one was really good. And I like the things that they try to innovate with Gears of War, with like trying to make it more open and all that, have a little bit of a side quest structure. Even though again, every game is becoming an open world game. Please stop, just please stop. But at least this one was not too big. This was fine. This was fine. But again, really enjoyed that one. Mortal Kombat A11. You play this one?
I did not.
Okay, so Mortal Kombat 11. I like playing the Mortal Kombat games for the story modes because no one does it better than NetherRealm. Their story modes are really elaborate, and their storytelling is actually really good. This
Really?
was the Avengers Endgame of Mortal Kombat, if you want to believe it.
I
It
do
was,
remember it was like time travel and stuff,
yes, it
right?
was time traveling, bringing everyone from like the downfall versions of the characters from the future and the younger versions that get to experience the downfall characters and try to like reset time and all of that. It was a really elaborate story and kind of emotional, and especially getting all the different threads together and ending in a very definitive way. I was like, that's
Hmm.
kind of cool for them to do to what's basically an ultra violent more fighting game with some of the most grotesque fatalities in the
For
series.
real.
But yeah, I like playing it for the story, and to me, it delivered. And it was a game I had installed when I had friends come over and be like, "Let's play something that is not FIFA or something else."
Yeah,
So that one was fun. And I heard there's a lot of problems with the online mode and the crypt, which is kind of like the endless mode. That
I
apparently that's
have
where
heard about that.
the microtransactions kind of come in. But I'm like, I didn't play that. I only played the other things, and to me, that's still one of my favorite experiences of the year. If you have the chance, I
Hmm.
would recommend you play it. It's a really fun fighting game.
Maybe I'll check it out. I haven't been much of a fighting game guy
Hmm.
outside of
Me neither.
um
Me neither. I don't play
what
much
was
fighting
it?
games.
I played Injustice 2, which I
Hmm.
lost kind of interest in.
Hmm.
Tekken, for whatever reason, captured my heart.
Hmm.
But Mortal Kombat, I just didn't really care as much for like the characters and
Hmm.
everything in it.
Yeah, and that's again. Mortal Kombat. I remember playing it in SNES. It traumatized me as a kid. Some of those fatalities. So it has a tiny, very tiny, tiny place in my heart for how I grew up with violent games sometimes. So it made me feel stuff I wasn't expecting to feel playing Mortal Kombat 11. Uh, Mario Maker 2. You play this one?
I did.
I really liked it, and then I stopped. Did that
Same.
happen to you too?
Oh yeah.
Man, oh man, you know what? If I'm pretty honest, when I was playing it, I thought this was going to be my number one. Infinite Mario levels. I didn't have a Wii U, but I did play Mario Maker. I'm like, man, if I had this, I could
Yep.
play this all day. It would be so good. And I finally got it with the Switch. And
Yep.
then I finished the 100 levels of the campaign. And then I went to the search tools, and the search tools are garbage. I went to play last week because I had a friend come over, and he was like, "I want to buy a Switch. What games do you have?" So come in there, and I showed him this one. It was cool, but I'm like, "Yeah, the search tools still garbage. Like some of the best levels are still hidden by people sharing their codes online." And I'm like, I don't feel the game is as loud enough anymore for them to be doing the cool levels anymore. So that was kind of a bummer because I was expecting to be playing this more, but I still would say for Switch, it was probably my favorite thing this year. And disclosure, I didn't play Luigi's Mansion or Zelda Link's Awakening. That's in the docket for January. There was way too many games last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else you want to add?
Well, not really for Mario Maker 2. You basically had the exact same
Mm-hmm.
experience as I did. I was hyped up. I bought Mario Maker 1 on
Mm-hmm.
3DS because I didn't have a Wii U, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, well, of course I'm going to enjoy the heck out of this. And then
Yeah.
I hated playing it on the 3DS.
Yeah. The 3DS version was a bad version of the game
Um,
historically.
yeah, and then when this came out, I went, "Oh, heck yes, I'm gonna play all of this now." And then I played it for about a week, and then
Mm-hmm.
never felt like going back to it.
Yeah. And again, like it's still sitting in my Switch. I know that's like my forever game. Maybe one day they're gonna nail the tools because they did add extra search stuff, but why can't I just type the name of the level? Why
Hmm.
don't you just add that so I can search stuff instead of like the weird filters? But oh well, Nintendo gotta be Nintendo, right?
Hmm.
One step forward, two steps back on online. Destiny 2, I don't want to get too far in the rabbit hole on this one because in previous shows I tend to go too deep into that my Destiny love. Destiny 2 had a great 2019. Bungie independence from Activision, the free-to-play game, the fulfillment of their annual pass, the release of their recent expansion that played on the nostalgia for the series that have
Hmm.
been going for 5 years at this point, which it might not seem like a lot, but when you play this game a lot, 5 years still feels like it's been 10 years for this thing.
For
And
real.
the game's now an MMO fully. Like it has fully embraced that thing. And for people that really want a game to be their forever game, I think Destiny 2 now it's finally in that place. And Bungie really like showed how great it is to them to be outside of Activision, enabling cross save almost immediately after they left, like saying that's the thing that's gonna come to the game, and then trying to make this more of a forever game that you can log in every week and there's always something new
Yeah.
even if it's tiny. I mean, they've done really well, and I'm glad that Destiny's healthy. And I wish you could play it, Paul, because I would like to play with you.
If I feel like I need to do better about it, I
Hmm.
just haven't touched it in so
Oh
long.
yeah,
I
because you
even
played at
tried
the
going
launch.
back.
You did play
Yeah,
at the launch,
I
so
did.
the game's
Um,
much different, much more complicated now because it's an MMO instead of just being the shooter it was.
That's
So,
actually one of the other reasons
mhm,
why it's. I don't want to say it's a lateral move because I'm not a fan of MMOs.
mhm.
That's just too much to take in all
Yeah,
at once, and
and I would
unless I
agree.
have somebody,
And that was a problem for new players. I tried to get my brother to come back in with his friend, and they got completely overwhelmed with how much there was.
yeah.
And I think that's always going to be a problem inherent to MMOs, but Destiny always had an identity crisis. It always wanted to be an MMO, but it wasn't. When it was under Activision, they wanted to keep selling games, but people wanted the game to be very hardcore and almost never ending and all that. So they always had a hard time struggling that balance. And now that they were on their own and they were like catering to their hardcore, they're giving
Hmm.
them what they want. And me as a hardcore player, I always have something to do in that game, and I really like it for it. If I made this list based on the game that I played the most, this would have been number one. I played it a lot. A lot. You know another game I played a lot because I also reviewed? That's Stranding.
Yeah.
Kojima's magnum opus. Paul.
Oh, that was a
I,
nice little segue that you
yeah.
made just there.
So this game, we both were playing it simultaneously. Yeah,
Yes.
PJ came way too late to play it, so I wanted to have a conversation to because he was a
What
big
a
Kojima
trip
fan.
that was.
Yeah, what a trip. It went from best game ever to worst game ever to something really cool, almost bouncing back and forth all the time. Tell me it wasn't,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It was I fortunately it didn't go ever get to that like worst game ever because
Hmm.
I just to give you what I will take as far as punishment goes, I
Hmm.
am still a fan of No Man's Sky even
Yeah.
at
Oh,
launch.
oh yeah. I was a fan of it
So,
too. It just kind of again like I moved on to other games because I kind of ran out of stuff of interest to do.
mhm.
But man, No Man's Sky, just as a tangent. If you guys haven't played No Man's Sky, whatever that thing has become, oh boy,
Just
it's
stop sleeping
incredible.
on it.
It's not. It's nuts. It's nuts how much they've evolved it. But yeah.
Hmm.
So you like punishment. So you do like punishment. You
Yeah,
love
here
climbing
and there.
the snowy mountains slowly while trying to dodge the BTs and all that.
Yeah, I found this strange sense of enjoyment
Hmm.
out of walking through nature, climbing. I
It was
think one of the favorite
cathartic.
things,
It
yeah,
was cathartic. It felt relaxing playing that game.
I was
It
always
really.
so excited, especially using the climbing anchor.
Oh yeah.
I would almost go out of my way to find a reason to use it,
Hmm.
to like go down a mountain to find my way up something that somebody else had left behind.
Hmm.
Oh, I loved it so
Yeah,
much.
it's so interesting that someone managed to make mountain climbing fun
Hmm.
and terrain navigating fun. That's like the challenge. And the way it connected with the online thing where you would find like items other players will leave you that would come clutch at a point that you would never expected. That was always the best part of that game. And the story, even though it was completely overwrought, especially by the time of the 13th chapter,
Yeah, there
when you're
was.
when you're going through the first batch of credits and you're hearing the lady preach at you
Hmm.
endless bubble. I think that was the part where you were saying, I think my love for this game is fading away,
Yeah,
ironically.
I I think I just blocked my mind out for what
Mhm.
actually happened because there
I
was.
literally was reading Twitter as that
Yeah,
thing was happening. It was like, this is just a bunch of nonsense. Just stop.
I
And
was
then the
just
guy almost wanted to shoot himself in the head. So I'm like, that's so funny. That's how I feel right now in this
like, yeah,
section.
that's
Yeah. Is
it
the game?
wasn't the starving, it was the frustration of hearing her.
Yeah. You had not eaten at that point. Oh man, so this game had some high highs, it had some low lows, but what a game. What a
Hmm.
unique game in the AAA space. We need more games like this. We definitely need more games like this. This is another one for you, Devil May Cry 5.
Hey, hey, hey. I
Really amazing
am.
game. What a game.
Oh,
What a
yes.
great action game. What a great return to form.
I remember the shoot. I was writing the retrospective for this. I
And the
wrote
review
the review
afterwards. Yeah.
right after. I was feeling all the Devil May Cry stuff. It made me even want to go back and like rewatch the cheap anime that they
Uh-huh.
made for it, which was gorgeous, by the way. When I
Yeah,
was thinking
what a
about it,
gorgeous game. Like,
um,
especially this new one, it's so photorealistic.
hmm
Even though some of the environments can be a little bland, just the level of detail in a lot of them, I'm like, man, Capcom's really making some of the prettiest games to date with their RE
yes,
engine. And it's so perfectly tuned. I
hmm
feel Devil May Cry 5 does better what Devil May Cry 4 failed at, which was the balance of the characters. Like,
they did better at it,
yeah,
but I
because uh-huh.
still think they needed to be more option to play Dante
Yeah, I
because
can see that. Huh?
I still felt like there was barely any of my boy in there,
Hmm.
especially once I started getting better at some of his
Hmm.
combos. It just there wasn't enough game to play with to really
Yes,
enjoy it.
I can give you that, but I would say that the parts that you're playing with Dante in this one more memorable than going through the game backwards, like it was in Devil May Cry
Yeah,
4.
I'll give
So
it that.
yeah, so I would say that they did better. I still wish we had a fully Dante-centered game like Devil May Cry 3, which I think is still my favorite of all the Devil May Cry games. But I feel like from a mechanics perspective, from like a balance perspective, and like the combat mechanics and all of that, I'm glad they were able to recapture that magic again, especially
Hmm.
after DMC Devil May Cry, which I liked, the reboot, felt so different in a good way, in a way, but this one felt like the old games but modernized, and it was so much fun. And that the freaking Devil Trigger song is still playing in my head right now that I'm thinking about it. It brings back
True.
the emo days. So moving on from that one, another Capcom game, probably their masterpiece, Resident Evil 2. You played this one, right?
Wait, which one?
Resident Evil 2?
I did. I had to actually bring that one back into the very far recesses of my memory with how long
Mm-hmm.
ago it's been.
You know, it was the first big game of 2019. Just to date us how
Yeah.
long that year was.
Wait,
That
didn't that
this
come out in February?
No, it came out 4 days before Kingdom Hearts 3.
Oh my
It's why
gosh, it
PJ
did.
reviewed it for us. He was the first review we published as Statics because I was gonna do the Kingdom Hearts 3 review, but I
Oh,
was
you're
like, I
right.
can't do Resident Evil and Kingdom Hearts at the same time. So I
Huh.
asked PJ, hey, you're a big Resident Evil fan. We want to do this one, and he did it. And he beat it in a night. He got it. He started playing at 11 at night and finished it at 5 a.m. He did an all nighter. I'm like, you're crazy. But I guess that's PJ. for all of our listeners. Yeah, so best survival horror game I have ever played. Fighting a zombie in this thing always felt nerve-wracking. I never thought zombies would scare me again after becoming so numb to them with how overexposed zombie has been in the last decade with Walking Dead, the
Yep.
Call of Duty zombie mode, which is just complete massacre of zombies and all that. And this one, then when Mr. X shows up with his hulking fedora and he's stalking you around, man, oh man, I went
Hmm.
to pee 3 times in that section because I was playing it. I wanted to do like another take on this game to kind of complement PJ's review from someone that started playing Resident Evil games with 5 and made my
Hmm.
way backwards. I wanted to provide my perspective, and I soiled myself with Mr. X. What a great game! Really, really recommend it. If the different playthroughs would have been different enough, I think this would have been my game of the year.
Really?
Yeah, it would have totally been that. Now,
Yeah.
do you want to add anything else to Resident Evil?
I will. Let me think. I will say it does a very good job at making you feel like you're alone.
Mm-hmm.
The environments are fantastic at giving me that
Yeah.
dreaded feel because I remember everybody was saying after Resident Evil 6, they said there's no way you can make this scary again. And
Mm-hmm.
Capcom went, well, of course, they did Resident Evil 7
Yep.
first person mode and that worked. And everybody's like, oh, okay, so they're going to have to make it first person, make it scary again. It's
Yeah.
just not scary if you're in third person. They terrified the heck out of me some of these
Yep.
moments in Resident Evil 2. I remember I got spooked the heck out
Mm-hmm.
when I was playing as
Claire.
Claire,
Uh-huh.
and I actually just turned the game off.
Yeah. Was it the part that you go through a corridor and out of nowhere Mr. X is pursuing you out of
No,
the
it
shadow?
was a random zombie. It was just the most boring moments. I was moving past. I think what it was is I'd known kind of the vague area for
Mm-hmm.
items, and of course they change a few things for the playthroughs. I was running back and forth so much to pick up all the things, just getting my stuff, moving past the zombies, not wasting my ammo. And there was one that I just wasn't really paying attention. I let my guard down, and one of them like came around a corner right as I was aiming at another one,
Mm-hmm.
and it got me. And I just like I put the
Yeah,
controller
you're like, I'm out.
down.
I'm out.
It was such like a strangely surreal moment where
Mm-hmm.
it's never like the moments that they want you to get scared. It's these random little things
Mm-hmm.
where the AI just does something a little freaky, and I fall to pieces.
Oh man, yeah. So I kind of want to replay it now that we're talking about it. What a really great game! And Resident Evil 3 coming out this year, which is crazy. I would have not expected another
Jeez,
remake
yeah,
on
you're right.
of that caliber to be released so soon.
We'll
Again,
see if it's actually of
20
that caliber.
yeah, 2020 will be a big year, and we'll definitely talk about our favorite games in a different episode, or our most anticipated games of 2020 in a future episode.
True.
So here's the one where we're definitely split down the middle. Control, my second
Yeah,
favorite game of the year. I think probably one of your most disappointing ones, or just one that you didn't gel as well as I did, right?
I would definitely say it's still up there. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the feel, the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Just there was a few things in there that just did not jive with
Yeah,
me.
the map.
One of which, yes, the map,
Mm-hmm.
the design of it, because I can understand like Metroidvania
Mm-hmm.
style. One other game that, of course, we both love that we'll be getting to, Jedi Fallen
Mm-hmm.
Order,
Yeah.
does that amazing because
Mm-hmm.
you can get an idea. There's a 3D plane that you
Mm-hmm.
can see where things
Yeah.
are. You can manipulate the camera to the map
Mm-hmm.
to your liking. You move faster through it. It just, but with Control, it felt like I was hitting a wall because my
Mm-hmm.
creativity was exceeding what they wanted me to do.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's where, for me, I think it pushed my creativity of exploration to the right amount by just having the 2D plane, because it made me rely more on actually seeing the environment and
Mm,
the arrows and all that of where to go to certain places, and it felt like a sense of place for me how I was seeing it. But I can see how it's, because I've heard that complaint a lot, and it's a valid complaint, that the map, it's obtuse, incredibly obtuse, that it will make you spend so much time just wandering around and making you angry about, okay, where the hell am I supposed to go here? It's showing me
yes.
here, but I don't see there's like no sense of floors in the map. It's just kind of just presented there. So I can understand how that would have hindered your enjoyment. To me, there was just something. I am a sucker for weirdness, for sucker for like people to just completely f with your mind with the storytelling techniques and all that. That's why I like the Twin Peaks
Mhm.
series by David Lynch. That's why I love Inception. That's why give me anything that completely melts my mind and all over it. From the very moment that you walk into the building and it's completely empty, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. And I would say it's probably the best third-person shooting I felt this year. Just the acting of aiming and shooting, and the amount of explosions and particles, and the almost infinite use of your powers, especially when you get floating, and then like you start upgrading, and then you start like carving chunks of the wall and all that. It always felt like the right amount of power fantasy, especially when you reach the ashtray maze, the one with like the rock song
Mhm.
that a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of people are calling the best moment of the year. I remember, I think I mentioned that. I think mentioning you the ashtray maze without telling you what it was
Yeah.
what got you to buy the game. Because it was so,
You
yeah,
did because you said it was going to be one of your
top
it was
moments of the.
yeah, top gaming moments, and I went,
Mhm.
okay, I gotta experience
Yeah.
this.
So yeah, it's kind of sad that I came out way more positive with this one than you did. But I'm kind of glad
Yeah.
that you ended up playing it because it's such a unique game, like
Mhm.
especially for what Remedy did, and such fun combat. I wish the ending was better. That's my big hang up with this thing. It just ends. He wants to be weird, but it just kind of stops. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it left me with like you know how sometimes the ending can taint a little bit the experience, even though it was a really great thing overall.
Mhm.
Is the reason why this one's in my number two, because the number one ended
Yeah.
on a high, and that was Jedi Fallen Order. Oh my god, I freaking love this game. Oh man. When 2019 started, do you ever expected because I assume Jedi Fallen Order is also your favorite game of last year, right?
That's most likely correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's like coming into 2019, I was like, I don't expect an EA developed Star Wars game to not only be good, but also my game of the year. And Respawn, what did Respawn Entertainment say? Watch us. Boom.
Yeah. For real.
Probably the best Star Wars thing that released this year next to The Mandalorian. I would even say it's better than The Mandalorian because Mandalorian had a couple filler stuff. This one was like the story. I was like, man, I'm so enthralled by a Star Wars story in a way that I never thought I was ever gonna be this way. Like it has themes from the Star Wars movie everybody hates, The Last Jedi, and develops it better. It respects the lore
Mhm.
and that ending, dude. That
Yeah.
ending just
I and we're not going to spoil
no,
it
no, we're
just
gonna say it.
from the start.
But just
Yes, I
the moment
agree.
that happened, as the music cue happens, you hear the thing and it shows up. I'm like, wow. I never like just thinking about that scene is giving me chills on my spine. Thinking how perfect it was nailed. And it just ends. And it wasn't even like it bucks conventions of what you would think the ending section of a game is.
Yeah.
And it nails
I
it
would
so
just
well.
I'd extend it to the entire final worlds
Yeah.
that you go to, and it's
Hmm.
just one bit. Like, honestly, you could say that entire world is your heavy rock hallway scene from
Hmm.
Control,
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
just stretched over
Hmm.
an entire world where you just have stormtrooper after stormtrooper that
Hmm.
you are just melting through
Yeah, like the
on
power
this
fantasy
rampage.
finally hits in Jedi
Mm-hmm.
Fallen Order, which I think that's the game's biggest strength. That it has a great power curve. It's a very tough game. There's like a lot of parts that kicks your butt in some of the
Mm-hmm.
boss fights and all that. But I feel it's nice to make you feel that kind of power fantasy without ever feeling like the Force Unleashed.
Right.
Exactly, and I feel that's what it nails because it makes sense with the character that he was a Padawan that never became like a master and all that. So I like that he's always kind of messy and scrappy because he really fits with what the world did. I will
Mm-hmm.
say that I wish there were some parts that were better, like the technical problems when it launched were unfortunate.
Yes.
It did crash my console twice in the same area when you're in the arena when you get kidnapped.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah,
I don't think I ever had an actual
crash.
crash, but
Hmm.
I did have some moments that were nearly like, excuse me,
Hmm.
they were nearly like breaking of like, okay, I got to go back and reset this
Hmm.
because this thing didn't load in the right way.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, the whole like streaming thing of like the levels on that, you would sometimes freeze in the spot as you see the whole level load up. So
yeah.
it definitely felt like a game that even though Respawn was working for a while, that EA wanted to have for the holidays, so it missed out the final level of polish. But even
Hmm.
then, I think Jedi Fallen Order is everything I want in a video game. It reminded me so much of God of War of the previous year, which was my favorite game of that year. But it also reminded me of Spider-Man, in that
Oh,
this was a licensed game done right, like with the care and love that it deserved. And before the 2019 had started, I wanted nothing more than EA to lose the Star Wars license. They were messing up left and right. They began the year canceling a Star Wars game, which was in turn just the remnants of the canceled game by the Dead Space creators.
right.
So they were like messing up, and by that point, Star Wars Battlefront 2 hadn't solidified its redemption. So over 2019, not only did they eventually finally release a really good Star Wars game, Battlefront 2 also got its redemption with like everything.
I think so too. I
So
really hope that it hasn't like let them off the hook for
no,
canceling all of
oh
their
no, oh no, no,
projects.
oh yeah, yeah.
I'm
This
just
is the
like in the
beginning.
grand scheme of things because
Yeah.
a lot of people are going to forget that because of how
Mhm.
well that this year ended, I'd say, for
Exactly.
Star Wars.
And again, like, and it goes to show sometimes how like the final impression is the one that sticks with you compared to how something begins. And the final impression Jedi Fallen Order left with me was really impressive.
Hmm.
So hey, yeah, it doesn't leave EA off the hook because they still need to release more. Their license deal ends in 3 years, so they better not let this just be a one-time fluke. It has to continue. But like Lord Santeca said in The Force Awakens at the beginning of the movie, this will begin to make things right. And I think that's a good note to end our Game of the Year discussion.
I think so.
So, and I think this should be the note where we end our first ever episode. Where,
I believe so as well.
yeah, so
We have
this was
covered
fun. Yeah.
plenty.
Oh yes. Other episodes going forward are not gonna be as meaty as this one. This is our first one,
Yeah,
so yeah, we just have to cover a little bit more. But yeah, there things are gonna be more measured going forward. We're gonna try to keep it more measured when planning it even more ahead, based on like the things that are popping up. We won't have to explain what the show is anymore by that point.
also true.
And yeah, so hopefully, I think the thing that I want to talk next week, Paul, just to give a preview, just
Yeah,
let's pick 5 games from this year that we're really anticipating, and let's just have a conversation about them, even if they overlap. Okay.
yeah. I'd love a little speculation.
Yes, and hopefully, and yeah, big year for gaming. I can't wait to see what Microsoft and Sony do, and even Nintendo. Hopefully, they release a Nintendo Direct soon, so we can have
True
some
that.
stuff to talk about.
We'll see.
News, gaming news, please start heating up more. We got a show to do. All right,
Bring it.
Paul, you can bring it home.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you if you have been able to listen to us. We are on Alejandro real quick. Are we still planning on putting everything on YouTube and
Yes,
Spotify and SoundCloud?
yes. The big plan right now is that this will be live on YouTube, but we're planning on putting it on SoundCloud so it can be in all the podcast services of your choice.
Heyo. All
So,
right. So, yes, even if you don't like us listening to us on one specific thing, absolutely do that. We have a Facebook group as well,
mhm,
and of course, the comment section of any YouTube thing that we post. Feel free to give us suggestions, give us things that you want to hear us
mhm.
talk about, because
Yeah,
we love to talk and hear our own voices,
yeah,
and we love to engage with y'all. That's probably most of what the fun is around here, outside of even talking to ourselves. So, as always, I've been Alejandro. Oh, wait, no, I haven't
yep,
been Alejandro. I've
nope.
been Paul.
Yeah, you're
And he's
impersonating
been
me. Yeah,
Alejandro.
I am Alejandro.
And we have been the X button. Thank you all for stopping in and for however long you ended up listening to us.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. We do this for y'all more than
yes,
even just
and
to hear
never
ourselves.
forget, press X to play.
That it is. See y'all next time. Adios.
Hasta la vista.